AlphaTauri starting from the #1 slot on the grid. As the lights come on, they go out, but we wait for them to go out for the drivers. And we are underway here at the Temple of Speed, and it's a great start for both of the drivers on the front row. I think Walter got a better one, if anything, but Valu looks like he should just about be able to hold it around the outside into turn 1. Further behind, Iceman is in third. Late on the brakes, might be looking to have a go at Walter, but cannot do it. Looks like a couple of drivers skipping over the chicane further back. There's already penalties for corner cutting coming through for a loss of the drivers here. Big collision in the background, and we've got a virtual safety car to start off this race. Dougie Falcons, though, up from 8th to 4th in the matter of 2 corners.
I think Calcifer had wing damage. A2 is in the pits as well. And here comes AJ down the inside of the racing point.
Looks like it is going to be side by side on the exit here. Very, very tricky traction zone. But they both manage to get the power down through those rear tires. Just about okay.
Yeah, and now Max is on the tail of Simons. Could look for a move. Simons goes defensive. Max looks to the outside and late on the brakes. Max gets the job done.
Beautiful stuff. So much later on the brakes there on the outside by Max. And comfortably getting the move done over and above Simons there. Further back is battling between Omabi and Peso, who's had a decent start off the line. That's Maverick getting involved as well. He'll feel aggrieved after whatever happened to him on the opening lap. They almost thought about going 3 wide through Curva Grande there. But Maverick shutting the door on Peso and now looking to get past Omabi into De La Rogia, and he does so. Nice move from Maverick on his recovery back up the field. Up into 12th he goes. Here and now, though, we got Racebug very, very close behind Elon Tusk. Still a bit of a train forming behind the Canadian in the McLaren, but Racebug's going to make that 1 carriage lighter. 2.3 seconds between Max and Cheguini Bambini, both of those drivers on great form in this race thus far. Here comes Dougie Falcons, though, up the inside of Iceman. Iceman's looking to take Walter as well. They're going to be 3 wide into turn 1 here, and it is so tight. Walter backs out of it. Very, very sensible driving indeed, and Iceman is sticking with these guys as he's got 0% left in his battery charge, but here comes Dougie Falcons once again having a go at Iceman. No niceties between these two in this race. It is wall-to-wall battling here, and Iceman still remaining ahead. Here comes Dougie Falcons yet again on Iceman as they head down the hill, back up the hill into Ascari. This time, surely he's done it. Yes, he has. Another position of Chelarch there. He has just been falling without a trace. Into 14th he goes.
That was a Williams. That was Racebug getting really wide through Lesmo too. Sorry to cut across you. I thought he would have ended in the wall, but he's going to lose 2 positions. One to Simons and the other to Luppy. He's going to come out right in this battle between Oma B and Peso, and on the same compound of tires. So he's actually going to lose, I think, a little bit of time. Can he get ahead of the McLaren into turn 1? And the answer is no. He needs to use everything on the exit of the Rettifilio chicane to get past, and I think that's exactly what he's doing now.
Yeah, should be able to sweep around the outside with ease there on pace. Looks to have been able to get the undercut there or hold the position away from Max. Actually, Max forced over the curb by his teammate and then forced out wide on the exit of turn 2 as well. That was not playing nice between the teammates there. Walter will be facing a very angry Max after this one, no doubt about that. Calcifer sweeping around the outside, taking advantage of the German's misfortune. Into De La Rogia we go, and Max wants to fight back with it, but Calcifer holds on to the position.
Much tire saving is Calcifer doing as Iceman looking for the move on Elon Tusk. Around the outside into Ascari, and Elon sensibly slots him behind. He's actually alongside into turn 1, side by side right now. Dougie around the outside will make the move work, and Iceman, he just needed to use that ERS on the exit of the Roger chicane. By the way, Dougie is through 2 lap fresher mediums as well, and in the long run, the Ferrari driver has the advantage.
Here comes Iceman once again. Does he make the move into De La Rogia? No, he does not.
And I'm just looking at Oma B and Peso because they're going to be pitting maybe at the end of this lap or the next lap for medium. Oh, Water! He's run a little bit wide. That's front wing damage as well. And Water's race has gone down the gutter after such a strong and solid opening half of the race. Rejoins the track in P11. Water ahead of Elon, who's on the inside. Water switches over to the outside. Can he hold on to the position? Elon's late on the brakes. There's contact, and I think that's Elon's own fault. He runs into the side of Water, and he's off into the gravel. Oh, no, he managed to hold it. I think Walter and Calcifer, especially both those two, could really, really use a safety car as Maverick now coming under pressure from Peso, the man who led the D1 championship for so long. Can Peso find a way through?
Looks like not quite yet. Further back down as well. Peso's teammate Elon Tusk is getting mud in that big fight.
Who is that? That was AJ. AJ's made contact, and I think that
Yeah.
might have been with Elon Tusk. Elon Tusk and A2 dropping down the order.
Right, here we go then, through the final corner. And it looks like actually he's dropped the hammer. Oh no, he backs out of it there. He didn't build up too much time. He's waiting and waiting so much time here. But now he has to go for it. And Iceman actually has been caught out by Dougie Falcons potentially. Calcifer has the worst restart of the front four and actually is under pressure from Max behind. Here comes Iceman though in second. He'll hold on to second. And that's not going to be Dougie Falcons breaking quite late enough. Calcifer can't do it and has to hold off Max as well with the other hand, but he's able to do so. Dougie Falcons isn't even close enough to make a move on Iceman, the Macedonian, comfortably in second for now. And here comes Calcifer up the inside. It's the outside of two. Dougie gives him the space there, but gets the slightly better traction on the exit, if anything. Through Curva Grande, they're going to go now. They're going to be side by side. It'll be the inside line for the De La Roja chicane that Dougie Falcons will have the advantage of, but will he even be alongside in the braking zone? Yes, just about, as they go side by side through there, and around the outside he sweeps, and then there's contact between Max and Dougie Falcons as Dougie almost loses it, pushes Max into the gravel, and this is going to give the opportunity to race bug as well. Who's that flying off? It's Max into the wall, and it's a disaster for Max.
Yeah, so Max and Racebug, after Max came up alongside Dougie, he had to back out and then was alongside Racebug, and that saw the two tangle, which is what caused Max to fly into the barriers. I think Dougie was a bit aggressive, squeezing Calcifer, and then Calcifer turned across her Dougie a little bit. Racebug gets his front end chopped off. Peso picks up a time penalty, so more disaster for Racebug. He picked up that time penalty, and now he's lost a whole chunk of his front wing, which I presume is from contact with Max. A four biting down into Parabolica.
This is incredible. Max retires from the session. He's lost it through the Lesmos. I think he's actually just retired the car there, but they're side by side. It's Simon's Walter falling down the order, desperately trying to battle on those mediums, but look at them. They're just swamping him all over. Here they come. This is the most incredible thing I have seen here at Monza, and right now they're going down the main stretches only for the middle of the points, but nevertheless, this battling is frenetic, and that is A2 UK of all people with a late surge in this race. He has been nowhere this weekend, but here he goes up into 8th, and he might well look to take Racebug as well, who might have a little bit of front wing damage from that incident with Luppy just a lap or so ago. Luppy has been able to gap the rest of these guys. Now, of course, there's still penalties to work out between all these drivers as well, but the battling on track is absolutely frantic right now.
Yeah, AJ, the only one in the top 10 aside from Calcifer and Dougie Falcons who doesn't have a time penalty, so he's going to jump up probably 4 or 5 positions come the end of the race. He's having a look down into Lesmo 2 as well. Will he pull it off down the inside of the Ferrari? And he gets the job to stick as well.
What did I tell you before the race about Lesmo 2? There is the move from AJ, and Maverick follows through as well. Simons will be looking to battle that one back. It's not gone the way he would have liked this race.
Oh, Simon really had to back out on Maverick, who went down the inside. That could have been disaster, as AJ has to defend from Chelarch down into Parabolica. Valu takes the win. Iceman will take P2. Calcifer will jump ahead after time penalty. It's a great drive from the Estonian. Dougie Falcons in a P4. Pesto will take P5. Luppy P6. And here's the battle for P6.
It's Racebug who just gets it across the line, but look who it is in 7th. It's Owen AK. He kept it clean. He was last throughout the whole of this race, and he's finished 7th by avoiding the penalties. Owen AK.
Good evening and welcome to Formula X Racing for round 7 as we make our way to the Marina Bay Street Circuit in Singapore. As always, I am Yousuf Milky Cereal bin-Suhayl, and I am joined by Jacob. I had like this whole cool intro planned and it was going to revolve around your beard. And now I see your camera. Where's the beard gone?
I mean, the beard also wasn't here last week, so evidently things, you work things out slowly, but that's okay. We all do things in our own time. That's okay. You can do the beard thing if you want. I can pretend. We can all
Oh,
pretend that I
okay.
have a beard. If it's that good, it'll be worth it.
I'm just trying to think. Is there a way we could like make it look like you've got a bit of a fake beard going or something?
I can't quite. I mean, no, it doesn't really quite.
No.
No,
Don't worry, I'll
probably
do it for next week. Just grow your beard out a bit for next week
not.
and remind me. It's a cool intro, I promise.
Okay,
Um,
I'm looking forward to it.
but we saw from that race highlight video, last round was at Monza, an absolutely insane, intense battle in the midfield on those final 2 laps as a late safety car kind of threw everything into the mix.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the safety car came out at basically the perfect time. It gave us, 3-4 laps of racing at the very end. It bunched everyone up. And at Monza, we know how chaotic that could be, and we saw it firsthand. There was one point where there were at least 5 cars battling all the way down the main straight, and it was unclear which one was going to end out in first at the end of that straight. And admittedly, that was towards the bottom end of the points, but we saw some battling up in sort of 4th, 5th, and everything as well. And it was a great race.
Oh,
hold on.
that is
Okay.
brilliant. Oh, that was amazing. Production, did the stream see that? Yes. Okay.
If you put it
can
back,
try
I'll
to
try and sit still.
God, yes.
Ooh.
Come on, you've got to lean into it, Jacob.
I think he has to put it on me rather than me. It'll be easier if.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Right. I've got this ready. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am Yousuf Milky Cereal bin-Suhayl, and as always, I am joined by a beard that needs no introduction. I mean, a man who needs no introduction. Jacob Aladar Hancox. How you doing?
I'm doing remarkably hairily, thanks. Having a great time over here. Yeah.
It looks like you're stuck in a bit of a hairy situation, to be honest.
Yeah. Apparently not. Never mind. Apparently my situation is all cleared up, so I'm ready to go. Why don't we talk about some actual Premier X stuff, shall we?
Yeah, so that last race at Monza, we already talked a little bit about that battle towards the end of the race, and you can see the championship standings on your screen. Valu still leading the championship by about 80 points over Carlsford, then Dougie Falcons a further 30 points behind, and that can all change tonight because Carlsford unable to race. Dougie Falcons has already missed out on one race, which was in France, and Carlsford has been to all the races. So this will kind of even things out in terms of attendance anyway in this battle for second place.
Yeah, indeed. In terms of attendance, for sure. And we'd expect Dougie to be able to get one of the top levels of points. Of course, we are racing at Singapore today, and that can be a bit of a different circuit to usual. So there'll be some drivers that will do considerably worse and some that will do considerably better around here compared to their usual performances. I know when I used to league race, my performances in Singapore, I could be expected to come about 5 or 6 places further down the order in Singapore than at most circuits, and I was not a street circuit kind of guy. And it may well be the case that Dougie Falcons is that kind of guy. I don't really know yet. So hopefully for his case, it's not going to be that, and that he will be able to get a decent haul of points and bring himself up to the level of Calcifer.
Yeah, and speaking of Singapore, we will be talking a little bit later about the Division 1 and Division 2 results later in the show. But as we make our way down the championship standings, Iceman, your Premier X Season 1 champion in 4th place, only 30 points ahead of A2 UK. And then you got Paris Borough, who's still remarkably, really, in 6th place, having, not been able to attend 3 of the races so far.
Yeah, the last 2 in a row as well. I'm not sure if we're actually having him here today or not. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think we aren't, actually. So, yeah, I think Paris is only going to slip further down the order. I think for his sake, actually, I think it's good news that Luppy also isn't here today, unless I'm mistaken. I seem to remember that from earlier. But maybe AJ might be able to creep on past the McLaren driver in the standings. But he's still safe to the rest of the ones behind, almost certainly. Maverick, Cheggers, Racebug. Maverick and Cheggers would have to have a really good result to get ahead of Paris here today.
Yeah, and we've seen Cheggers, Racebug, and Maverick in this kind of midfield battle. And a driver that I really do want to bring up is Max, because Monza was heartbreak for the German driver. He had such a phenomenal race. I'm looking at my notes. He's only had one finish in the top 10 so far, which was at 9th place at Hungary. And then it was all going so well for him in Monza. Same for Racebug as well. They were both having absolutely fantastic drives, and then contact with 2 laps to go. And they both dropped so far down the order. Max down to 17th place. Racebug from 9th place when they should have arguably finished maybe P5, P6, maybe one of them even in the top 4 as well. So Max and Racebug, I've had questions I know about Max and whether he had the pace to be able to match with the top guys of PX, but recently he's really been starting to up his game and really getting in the mix.
He was on an upwards trajectory as well coming into the race in Monza. It was 13th, then 9th, and then it was going to be 4th or 5th, something along those lines for Max. And then, unfortunately, it's the DNF, but it is promising. The trend is good for Max right now, much like it is for Cheggers. Both of these guys are people who, at the start of the season, were down towards the bottom of the order where we expected them to be. Max was occasionally outperforming in qualifying, but that's getting more and more regular, and the race performances are getting better and better from Max as well. And Cheggers, I mean, it's a similar story. He does struggle sometimes to keep it clean throughout the race, sometimes is prone to making an error, losing a bit of his front wing, that sort of thing. We saw it happen. I think he lost 2 front wings in Monza, and that's why he ended up down in 15th. But nevertheless, both of those guys are really looking to kick on right now and starting to bring some upsets.
Now, Jacob, the incident between Max and Racebug wasn't the only contact or incident, I should say, that occurred in Monza, was it?
No, indeed. There was a fair few, and in fact, I have prepared my first incident report in a little while now to be able to show you, to cover a few of the key incidents from Monza. Welcome back to the incident report. Now, I know it's been a minute since I last did one of these for Premier X, and there are some not very good reasons in the form of I just forgot for a couple of weeks, and then also had a couple of races as well where not much actually happened in terms of incidents to report. Thankfully, or perhaps not thankfully, that wasn't the case in Monza. There were plenty of things to talk about, so why don't we just jump straight on into those? As is rather often the case, we're actually going to be starting here with the race start because there were some incidents at the very beginning of the race in Monza, and we're actually going to be on board with Cheggers here, Cheguini Bambini as he was dubbed for this race, and we'll see as he gets off the line here, he actually does okay off the initial launch, but then starts to drop it in second gear, almost loses the car entirely, and then falls back quite a way through the field, letting a few cars through, but that's not really the most significant thing. We'll see that in just a moment here, as we see suddenly Sepp is just absolutely booted into turn 1, sent round. Not much the Mercedes could do about that one. Very, very unfortunate for him. Thankfully for Cheguin, he managed to avoid actually getting involved in that. Did pick up a 3-second time penalty through his evasion, but that's not the end of the world. Now we will see the same start on board with Racebug, who is starting a fair way further down the order, just alongside Luppy there, who you can see just got an absolute rocket ship start. Same for A2 UK, who comes flying through on the inside here as well. And then we'll watch Turbo Tortoise as we head down into turn 1. The Red Bull gets far too hot on the brakes, just goes slamming into the side of the Mercedes into turn 1. All kinds of carnage. That's Maverick off on the right-hand side there, trying to avoid Turbo Tortoise as well. And it disadvantaged a lot of drivers and brought out that virtual safety car. So yeah, probably not too much to discuss here. I mean, Turbo Tortoise, first race in Premier X, actually went into the side of another debutant in the form of Sepp in the Mercedes. But yeah, the Red Bull driver, far too late on the brakes. It was just nerves that got the better of him in the end. He mentioned that in the Discord after the race. And, you know, everyone makes mistakes. These things happen. It was a fairly big mistake, and it had some pretty major consequences for a lot of the field. So hopefully we won't see anything like that from Turbo Tortoise in the future. But, yeah, not his finest moment, perhaps, at the beginning of the race in Monza, for sure. And yeah, other than that, there's not too much to say. A few drivers getting penalties here and there for getting out of the way of the incident, which is very, very frustrating for them as well. I believe Maverick actually got a 5-second penalty, even though he was on the gravel avoiding Turbo Tortoise, and actually got passed by a lot of cars under yellow flags because he was off track as well. So very bad luck for him. But of course, Sepp was really the main loser in that regard. Here we are then, on board with Walter on lap 20, going into turn 1 once again, and we're actually going to see a rather similar incident here as Elon Tusk just comes flying out of nowhere into the side of AJ, who gets sent spinning off into the gravel. Carnage behind Walter as well. So yeah, quite a small little incident there, really. Not small in terms of its impact, but small in terms of the amount of time and the amount of analysis that there really is to do about it. You can just see Elon Tusk absolutely just far too late on the brakes, just going flying into the side of AJ. Apparently, it was due to the Canadian Elon having some screen freezing issues that meant that he was really struggling throughout the race and, you know, causing that incident there. Screen freezing at the wrong time means that he misses the braking point, just goes absolutely flying into the Alfa Romeo. And also got the box seat for it as well. We had seen these cars actually battling on the lap before as well, And there was quite a lot of chaotic battling going down there, so an incident did seem like it was kind of on the way, whether it happened sooner or later. And in fact, that actually brought out the safety car. That was the incident that brought out the safety car towards the end of the race. We didn't get to catch exactly what happened on stream, so I thought I'd include it here, even though there's not so much to analyze about it. So then on to our final incident here, and it is of course the incident that involved Dougie Falcons, Calcifer, Max, and a fair few other drivers on the penultimate lap of the race. And you can see a little bit further up ahead, that's Dougie Falcons and Calcifer already going side by side as we go down towards De La Roja. We are going to see Dougie Falcons here going into the side of Calcifer, getting spun around. Max has nowhere to go, straight into the Ferrari, and then on the exit, Dougie actually has to correct a bit, sends Max into the gravel. Max then corrects himself, going into Racebug, who picks up orange front wing damage. He then has a bit of a moment on the exit and pushes Simoms wide, and we're going to see another look at it here in slow motion. You see Max getting pushed off as he's in the gravel. There gets a lot of gravel on those rear tires, and then he just has this moment here that sends him into Racebug. I don't think it's intentional from Max. I don't think it's a late defense. I think he just lights up the rears in that scenario, and yeah, a bit unfortunate for both of those drivers. And now we'll see it from on board with Dougie Falcons here, and seeing what happened at the very head of the incident. Now, you already saw into turn one there, that was Calcifer getting a little bit aggressive on Dougie, shall we say, but I think that was all just about fair into turn one. Then there's a lot of wheel banging, side pod banging as we head down through Curva Grande, and here I think Dougie is just... the nose is halfway in there, but it's not in enough to really justify the space, and as a result, Calcifer turns in on him and he gets sent round. A couple of incidents to discuss here, so why don't we start with the one we saw first, or saw properly first, which is the incident between Racebug and Max on the exit of the De La Roja chicane. Now, I think in this situation, Max is under a lot of pressure. He's just gone into the side of Dougie Falcons, which he couldn't help. Dougie was completely blocking the road, having been sent round in his incident with Calcifer. Then Max on the exit gets pushed wide by Dougie into the gravel. I'm assuming that Dougie had some sort of in fact, I think he did have some sort of lighting up the rears that sent him in to the left of the track, which pushed Max out onto that gravel. And then Max being there meant that he was going to light up his rears as soon as he tried to put the throttle down when he came back. Of course, all these incidents can be avoided with a bit more caution from the drivers, so it's not like they're entirely blameless in these scenarios, but I do think this is, broadly speaking, a sort of textbook racing incident, and it's very, very unfortunate for Racebug there. And then he pretty much gives as good as he got on the exit of Lesmo 1 as well, when he pushes Simoms wide at the very end of the clip. But yeah, so there's a lot going on there, and I think it's all just utter chaos, and I don't think anything can be pointed, any fingers can be pointed in any directions for that particular part of the incident. Then we look actually at the Dougie Falcons and Calcifer aspect that really started the whole chain reaction. I think that Dougie is very, very optimistic on the brakes into De La Roja. At no point does he have more than just a tiny bit of his car alongside Calcifer's in that braking zone. And I think he needs to get out of there rather than just leaving his nose just a little bit too far in. Thankfully for Calcifer, he wasn't actually adversely affected by it at all. Really, it was only Dougie that lost out, and then, of course, all the cars behind. But I would put the blame on that incident on Dougie, but again, it's not a major incident in and of itself. It just happened to cause a big chain reaction behind. But with that, I think that's going to be it then for the analysis report from round 6 of Premier X at Monza. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the next race.
Thank you, Jacob, as always, for going over the incidents from the previous race. Now, the Singapore circuit may be seeing a few more incidents than Monza, with walls around the circuit on both sides. And the Division 2 and the Division 1 races were not without incidents. And coming in to this week's of racing, let's see how that Division 2 championship table looked. Oh, okay, we don't have the table. Never mind. Do we have Division 1 table? Never mind. Sorry, that is actually my bad. However, you spoke about some of the incidents, and I actually got to speak to one of the drivers who was involved in one of those incidents, Mr. Max himself, who also later in the interview gave a bit of insight as to how the entire stewarding process occurs in Formula X racing. I'm here with Renault driver Max for a short interview. First of all, Max, thank you very much for joining me.
I guess let's get straight into it. How have you found your season to have gone so far?
It's been a little bit of an up and down. I think it's been more downs than ups, unfortunately. Yeah, it started off quite terribly in China with a DNF, I think. Yeah, it was a DNF at the end. I had some big moments, a lot of spins, a lot more than I would have wanted to, and ever since then it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride. And up until Monza, it was pretty bad. I had a P9 in Hungary, which was the best finish this season so far. Um, so that's okay for me, but yeah, it's not been particularly great so far.
I mean, you kind of put yourself down. You've got yourself this kind of role right now in Premier X. You're this underdog, but every now and then we really see you up towards the sharp end. I mean, I know in France you were up there before you had that mistake. Monza as well. You were doing so well until literally 2 laps from the end. So every now and then we're seeing these. I want to say glimpses, but it's more than glimpses. It's these races of almost brilliance. So do you think that kind of great kind of top six result is going to come at some point in the next half of the season?
I'm pretty sure it will, yeah. There's some tracks coming up that I feel comfortable. Singapore's one of my better ones. I know there's a lot of people that don't like Russia, but for me personally, I like Russia. I think I'm pretty proficient there, so I think there's some good results possible there, because obviously there will most likely be some crashes as well. So if I manage to stay out of the trouble, like I usually do, especially on the opening laps, as we saw in Monza as well, right? I started P11, and after 2 laps or 3 laps, I was up in P5 almost. So if I manage to do that in Singapore and Russia, for example, I think there's definitely a P6 or better that I can achieve there.
Now, in season one, you were racing in Division One. How have you kind of found the transition from Division One to Premier X?
Well, I think the problem for me was because last season, obviously, PX was a little bit of a different grid. I think if I would have been in PX last season, it would have looked a lot more better now. But I still feel comfortable, right? There's people in PX that I know I can beat, and I don't think that I'm the worst driver there, obviously. So there's people I can beat, and then I feel comfortable, and I can get those top 10 finishes, and that's all that matters.
And in Premier X right now, who do you kind of see as your rivals? Who do you think, when you're racing and you see their name below you, you get a little smart thinking, yes, I'm beating them?
Well, I mean, so as far as I remember in Hungary, Racebug was behind me, right? And the same went for Monza. And that's been kind of the goal I had, to be right there with Racebug is kind of the goal that I've been looking for. Otherwise, obviously, Chegwin maybe. He's had some good starts to races. I remember in Monza, if I'm correct, he was quite up there, and then he dropped off because he made a couple of mistakes. So obviously, he's one of the guys that I definitely want to beat, Chegwin that is, and Racebug. If I'm up there with him, then that's good for me.
So Chegwin and a race bug. Now I also have to ask as well because it's been on my mind for a while and I've had no idea. Where has Batman Zocker? What is that all about?
It's quite a fun story, and I've told this to a lot of people already. It's actually a German thing, obviously. So the second part, the Zocker part, that's basically that means gamer, right? And the first part of the name, it's obviously Batman, right? So it came from is I was a lot younger back then, but it was on the PlayStation 3. I was playing in a Batman costume. That's actually where the name comes from.
Okay, I like that Batman gamer. There will definitely be some references to Batman now in the next race. So you can look forward to that one, Max. Something else I should ask as well is because you are part of the stewards team, and I know there are probably a lot of people who are watching, and I know there have been incidents in the previous races that have got everyone kind of blowing up. Would you like to give a little bit of insight to some of our viewers onto how the whole stewarding process actually works?
Yeah, I mean, so at the moment we're 5 stewards. We'd love to be 6, but obviously it's a little bit hard with people, and you have to commit time to that because it's obviously not. You can't just like rush through them. You have to take the time to look at them, and we try to get as many angles on every incident as we can. But sometimes there's only one angle available, and that's the things we have to work with. As far as the the Chelage Rigi plays that we had in Monza. Obviously, there were multiple incidents, but we always have to look at the entire picture. Obviously, it's a rivalry going on, and you know, some things happen, and if they're not too extreme, we don't really see the necessity, you know, in I guess in just faulting one person for that one incident, because it's a long ongoing rivalry, and there's multiple incidents in one race. We looked at all of them, and yeah, we just came to the conclusion that in general there wasn't too many crazy things going on, so there was no real big, they both were at faults in multiple incidences, so there was no real reason to, you know, just hit one of the two with some big type of penalty.
Well, Max, next race is going to be Singapore. Can you give me a prediction? Where do you think you're going to finish this one?
Oh, Singapore, I really like Singapore. I think it's a fun track to race at. I think it suits my driving style pretty well, so I'm definitely trying to get in that top 8 if that's kind of where I want to see myself. Obviously, it's a city circuit, so there's obviously going to be some crashes, most likely some safety cars, so we'll see how that pans out for me. I've had some bad luck with safety cars in Silverstone, but I hope it goes better then. I'm going to see myself in that top 8 somewhere.
Top 8. Well, Max, thank you very much for joining me, and best of luck in the race.
Thank you.
Well, it was great to be able to speak to Max, and hoping that he'll be having a fantastic race at Singapore. And I feel that he does deserve. I mean, we've talked a little bit about his bad luck, and Jacob, you mentioned how he was he's been on the upward trend. You know, 17th in France and 13th in Britain, 9th in Hungary, and is looking to keep on increasing in that direction.
Yeah, for sure. And I certainly hope he can, because I think that he is a fun driver to watch. I think he does keep it clean in general. I mean, that incident with Racebug, there's things to be said either way. I think that was just pretty much textbook racing incident. I think that was so chaotic that you can't really blame anyone for what went on there. But yeah, I mean, Singapore is, as a circuit, it will be Marmite for these drivers. There'll be some that love it and think it's great, and probably a lot more that hate it and think it's awful. And then of those ones that hate it, some of them, much like yourself, will actually be quite good at it, even though they hate it. And others will just they will just not be able to find the way.
Yeah. And yeah, you know, you've just got 4 different sections. You love it, you hate it, you're like me and you hate it, but you're good at it. And then you're like Reed, where you like the track, but you do like 3-minute lap times around the circuit because you break your wing like five times around on the lap. Sorry, Reed. We all love you. I just had to throw that in. I should probably announce the weather as well. It does look like we've got light to cloud in qualifying, so it's going to be a dry qualifying. And then in the race, we've got from light cloud to heavy rain, and then back to overcast. So we've got all of the transitions happening from slicks to full wet, and then all the way back again, Jacob.
Yeah, so that's going to be fun. If it's going to be wet, at least have it be dry to wet, and then even better if it's dry to wet to dry again, because that just means so many more permutations. And if there's anything I love, it's a good permutation.
Yeah. I feel like I want to like do a weird transition from permutations, but I can't. So the pole lap yesterday came from a certain Red Bull driver, and I managed to get my hands on that footage to take you for a hot lap guide here at the Marina Bay circuit. With Omar B for a hot lap here at Monza. Turn 1, you need to get yourself all the way over to the left. You're going to break out the pole lap in Division 1 was set by Pesso. So, how did he do it? Well, heading down into turn 1, keep the car all the way to the right and brake super late, almost at 50 meters, throwing the car in 3rd gear, shift up to 4th, drop it down to 2nd gear for turn 3. Now you've got barely a second to breathe through the kink of 4 and into turn 5. 4th gear, back on the power, use up the revs, and you are on to the Raffles Boulevard, one of the few places where you do have a second to think about your entry down into turn 7. About 80 meters on the brakes, 3rd gear, short shift to 4th to minimize the wheel spin. On the short nickel highway down into turn 8, 90 degrees, back end just wants to step out all the time. Fred gets well out of the way through turn 9, and now run up the gears for the run into turn 10. Super late on the brakes, almost 50 meters down into 3rd, short shift up to 4th, and swing it into turn 11. Now on the run into the Anderson Bridge, pull the car all the way to the right. 1st gear, Pesso runs a little bit wide, and that surely cost him maybe a 10th or even more. Now, on the Esplanade drive, on the run into turn 14, again, later on the brakes, about 70 meters. Second gear, short shift up to third, and use up as much of the track as you can. Swing the car over to the left as you make your way into turn 16 and 17. Fourth gear, gentle on the throttle. Stamp on the throttle once you've opened up the steering, and now down into 16 and 17. Third gear, short shift to fourth as you ride over the curb. 20 and 21, drop it back down to third, short shift up to fourth again. Back on the power, use up all of the track, and now bravery into turn at 22. Sixth gear, carry the speed and across the line for a 1:34.1. All right then, ladies and gents, we are into qualifying, and Jacob, your favorite driver, or at least your favorite driver to come out of the pits, is out of the pits.
Well, favorite driver. I don't pick favorites, of course, but I am very, very invested in the Racebug always leaves the pits first storyline, and he always does. He doesn't necessarily make his outlap all the way around first, though, because he actually takes a rather slow outlap, usually, compared to most of the other drivers. However, on this occasion, he has led the pack around, so he'll be starting the very first flying lap of the first session of qualifying here. As you can see, 17 drivers with us today, so we're only going to see a couple of drivers falling out of this one, and I'm noticing a few changed names towards the bottom of the order there. Maybe you could shed some light on that.
So, okay, so this goes back a bit. So essentially, my first ever commentaries I did, I got a group of racing friends that was Calcifer and Black Panther from a league we used to be together in. And Black Panther, he's essentially the original Belgian. So I told Walter that, you know, he's not my first Belgian. He's just a replacement. So he changed his name to Milky's Belgian replacement, but it only appeared on stream as Milky's Belgian ... So he just changed his name to Milky's Belgian. And clearly a certain Cheguini Bambini thought that's entertaining. So he's changed his name to Walter's Mank, which I believe is short for Manchester, because that is where Cheguin is from.
Indeed, Mancunian would be the term it's probably literally short for in this incident. But yes. So, well, I just have to try and remember that one and try not to call them Milky's Belgian and Walter's Mank throughout the race. But I can't promise that I won't. In the heat of the moment, I might just read the name and call them what they are. But for now, I will try to remember that is Walter and, of course, Cheguin. And sadly, I mean, I'm kind of disappointed, though, that means we're not getting a sort of Singapore-themed name for Cheguin, though. Bit of a rough one there for us, at least.
Yeah, it's a shame, but I'm just trying to think what would be a Singapore type of name, really.
Well, that's true. Cheggles, like Raffles, I guess.
Is Raffles a Singapore? Oh,
like
as
in the Boulevard. Yeah, he was he's one of the founding members, I believe. The Chegapore Sling? No, that doesn't really work, does it? Anyway, let's talk about qualifying. I mean, before I embarrass myself any further, Sepp, I believe, was at the top of the order there. Standing in the racing point today, hopefully that'll bring him more luck than the black Mercedes did. Maybe the pink Mercedes will end up without him getting rear-ended into turn one like we saw from Turbo Tortoise in Monza on Sepp, the reserve driver, not really hitting the ground running in his Premier X career, but we'll be hoping for a better result here today. Omaby just actually 3.5 tenths down in second, and then another big gap down to Racebug AJ, and then Rafa Martins, who is a new full-time driver in the league in the Haas team.
Yeah, and interested to see what Rafa Martins can pull out. I know there's been a little bit of hype around Rafa, and from the hype and from what people have been telling me, I'm fully expecting him to be in that top 10, maybe kind of closing around that gap between Iceman and the likes of Dougie Falcons.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, that would certainly be useful for Haas if that could be where Rafa Martins ended up, and it would also benefit my pre-season prediction of Haas being the Constructors' Champions greatly. I don't think they're going to pull that one off. That would be one hell of a miracle run if they were able to upset AlphaTauri at this stage, but hopefully they can get themselves a bit further up the order to save my blushes just a little bit, make it seem like it was a bit less of a ridiculous prediction, as here comes Iceman across the line, and unfortunately he's not doing anything for the cause right now, down in 5th place after that lap with a 1:35.219.
Yeah, and So I do want to talk a little bit about the strategies here at Singapore, because if it was a full wet race, we'd be seeing a lot of crazy things. And of course, when you transition from a dry race, from a dry qualifying to a wet race, you do see drivers going with that wet setup. But because we have such changeable conditions, one of the big things with the setups that you need at Singapore to have a fast lap is high tire wear. And because of how much change we're going to be seeing in the weather, I don't think teams and drivers are going to be having to compromise that setup to have a setup that can, have nice tire wear, because it doesn't matter, because the conditions are going to be constantly changing. It doesn't matter if your tire wear is high. And that is something that I think is going to be very important, because I think that this means that we're going to be seeing very, very quick lap times during qualifying.
Well, I certainly hope so. It's always nice to see the drivers going as quickly as they possibly can, and giving us the extra thrills as they barrel through the closed-in walls of this street circuit here in Singapore. And yeah, of course, that rain coming in as well, that's going to throw in a bit of a dice roll into the strategy choices for these guys going into the race, and that's always something that's very, very exciting to see, even if the drivers probably aren't looking forward to it quite so much. Here is Dougie Falcons in the Ferrari with the very suitably coloured red walled soft tyres there on that Ferrari. Always looks nice when you can colour code the tyres. And he is currently on his first fine lap. That says purple sector 2. I know not whether to trust it at this stage, as he heads now onto the little underpass section here, which I believe is actually the second bridge of the lap. And then into the final few corners. This is 20, 21. You got to get as close as you can to the wall on the exit. Nice little curve in the wall allows you to take a bit more speed there. And then the double left-hander at the very end, 22, 23, and across the line to take what is currently the fastest time of this session, a 1:33.981 from Dougie Falcons.
Yeah, and it's good to see that Sepp's right up there as well in this battle for, the top spot in Q1. We had questions about Sepp, and he wasn't really able to perform in the previous races that we saw him, but good to see him right up there here at Singapore. Simmons, let's see what he can pull out. Still got the likes of Valu, Peso, Maverick, all to set lap times as well.
Yeah, some heavy hitters, certainly, and Max, Kenner's both coming out. Nice to see Kenner's back after not making it to the previous Grand Prix. And Valu also on an outlap. So yeah, a couple of really heavy hitters will be out here to set laps in just a moment. Here is Simons, who's didn't have the rub of the green in Monza. I think he picked up quite a few penalties as well, and he was actually that incident, he wasn't involved in it in any major way, but the incident towards the end with Kaus for Dougie Falcons and then the whole sort of chain reaction behind them, Simons actually got pushed well wide through Lesmo 1, and that lost him quite a lot of time and critical places in that battle as well in that race. So he could have been considerably higher up in that race than he actually ended up. Right now, though, he goes up into 6th with a 1:34.949. That's behind Rafa Martins, who has been able to improve in that Haas.
Yeah, and Pesa's just gone purple in Sector 2. The man was flying yesterday in Division 1. He won the race by over a minute. 60-plus seconds in a 31-lap race. And, well, he's looking to show everyone here in PX that he can take it up with the big boys. We saw him do a 33.9 in a qualifying yesterday, but that was with a wet setup. Now he has a dry setup.
Indeed, and we'll see where that gets him. Up into 3rd for the time being, just behind Sepp, that 1:34.104. So about a 10th, just over a 10th really away from Dougie Falcons. Not too much in it, and on such a long lap, there's always going to be more time that you can find. Very few times have people really managed perfect laps around here. I think Lewis Hamilton did it most recently. I think it was, 2018, where he pulled that incredible lap in qualifying. Maybe that was even back in 2017 now, but I'm sure these drivers will be hoping to aspire to those greatnesses there. There's Max coming through the final corner, and only up into 11th for the Renault driver. That puts him in the safe zone for now, as only 2 drivers will be dropping out, but it's not too safe. He'll be feeling a little bit on shaky ground there.
Yeah, he will be. And Walter only down in a 14th with that 35.6. He is pretty close, actually, between Chegwin, JB Blessed, and Walter. Only a 10th separating them, but they can all go quicker. Valu and Maverick still to do laps. And let's see what Kenneth can pull out, because he might be the difference, as actually he's invalidated his lap. 6.5 minutes, actually 7 minutes remaining.
Yeah, lap invalidations around here, relatively common. I mean, it's such a long lap as well that you have so many corners to go through, and there's quite a few where you can invalidate. It's not the world's worst track for invalidations, but it's certainly far from the best as well. I hope you'll agree with me on that one. That was a very broad statement I made, so hopefully you can't disagree with me on this one. But yeah, that will, of course, be catching out some of the drivers, but probably not so much as we've seen at certain other circuits. It has caught out Valu, though, who, after coming through with that lap, hasn't been able to get a time on the board due to cutting, and that is turn 2. That's one of the places where you can run wide through there, or the exit of turn 1 that becomes turn 2. You can cut across there very, very easily. You can sometimes take too much of the road on the entry to this turn, corner, turn 5, and invalidate there as well. But that all looked very smooth from Valu, as it tends to do as he heads towards the next heavy braking zone here for turn 7. Cutting just the right amount of the corner and then running a little bit over the curb on the exit. That all looked good once again.
Yeah, and Singapore's a circuit where you really need to get to grips with it with a lot of practice, because there are some curbs that you really need to cut, and other curbs that if you try to cut, it feels faster, but it's actually slower. And you see Valu making his way down into turns 10, 12, 13. Turn 10, you've got to use the curb. Same for 12 and 13. And that's where, you know, it is so easy to invalidate your lap time as a result. And you do have these corners where you have to stay away from some curbs so you don't invalidate, and other corners where you have to absolutely throw the car over the curbs. Turn 14, as we just saw, you don't want to be cutting the curb there, as Valu demonstrates and goes purple in the sector 2.
Indeed, yeah. It's looking like it's going to be a solid enough lap here for Valu. All he needs to do is put one on the board, and I'm sure that will be good enough to get him through this Q1 stage. His teammate Maverick actually still in the pits. I'm not sure if he's actually left the pits at any point during this qualifying thus far. So the AlphaTauri boys shaking a little bit right now, but I think they'll be okay, as Valu proves that very emphatically by coming across the line and posting a 1:33.649. But Maverick being quite brave to stay in the pits this long right now, and that is something we've seen bite him in the past.
Yeah, and something that's biting Kenneth right now is invalidating his lap, and I think he's just taking a little bit too much curb through turn 5 onto the Raffles Boulevard. So Kenneth, he's got enough time to head on into the pits at the end of this lap, put on a new set of boots, and go back out for one more flying lap. Maverick as well needs to come out of the pits and set a lap too. And so far, Maverick's been doing a good job consistently around that kind of a 10th place spot, and he's bringing the points and helping Valu carry AlphaTauri forward. And at the moment, they are top of that Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, it's interesting, actually. Maverick 11th in the last 2 races, a DNF before that, and he had issues in quite a lot of the races thus far this season. I think that last race out, it really wasn't his fault as well. The incident that happened towards the start, at the very start of the race, he was forced onto the gravel, picked up a penalty, despite doing everything he could to slow down, letting others through, etc. It was just a bit of a nightmare for him there. I think he was very, very frustrated with that, as he well ought to be, but he managed a decent points haul in the end, coming home 11th. He'll be hoping for better than he's managed thus far this season, I'm sure of that. But I think a lot of it really has been out of his hands. You can think back to Baku as well, where he was once again faced with adversity that wasn't really any of his own fault. He was, I think it was bad safety car timing for him in that race, and yet he still managed a very impressive recovery drive there.
Yeah, it was impressive. I'm just trying to see right now. Iceman is on a lap. Kenneth is into the pits. Maverick is out on his out lap, so we're going to start to see those final laps coming in. And in that danger zone, you've got Chegwin, you've got JB, Walter, and of course Maverick and Kenneth, the latter two, still yet to set a lap.
Yeah, interestingly, I want to say also, looking up at the timing board right now, I know Valu was under a bit of pressure. I know it was his second lap on that set of soft tires. He was probably just looking to safe it where he could and make sure that he wasn't going to invalidate. But nevertheless, he's not as far ahead of the rest of the field, given the length of the lap here, as we would usually expect. So maybe a little bit of hope for the likes of Dougie Falcons, Sepp, Peso. I'm impressed by Sepp, actually. That was a very early lap time he put in, one of the first, if not the first, and it's still really holding strong up there in third. So the Racing Point, the stand-in driver, could well be looking for a good result here after his sort of full start to his Premier X season last time out, and others starting their Premier X season, their Premier X careers. JB currently sitting down in 14th in the second Renault, having taken over that seat from Wheeze Racing, and he'll be hoping to pop up the order a little bit now, as he is currently on a flying lap with Walter as well just behind him.
Yeah, and something actually that Pesto was attesting to yesterday during his interview was the fact that the track evolution here at Singapore is really, really big. So these laps that we've seen in Q1, expect them to be improved on fairly significantly once we get to the latter stages of Q3. So I wouldn't even be surprised if Valu does, you know, maybe even squeak in a 32. It sounds ridiculous, but it might just happen. It is only 6/10 and over such a long circuit. We're talking 100-second lap time here at Singapore pretty much. It is definitely possible. Walter on a lap. What can he pull out? Will it be enough to find that extra 10th? That might be the difference between him getting knocked out in Q1 and him making it through to the second session of qualifying.
We'll see then as he comes through the penultimate and now final corner. And across the line, it's good enough for 12th for now. He might want to go again on that, but he has backed out of this one. Might be able to manage one more lap around and then another push, but that's going to be a bit touch and go for Walter, and the lap time is certainly going to be touch and go as long as the rest of the drivers behind don't invalidate their lap and are able to set decent lap times. Maverick, who has left it to the very end of this Q1 session to really get out there and give it a go, is going to need to deliver on this lap or else the next one, and he's managed to get more than halfway around this lap now without invalidating, so that's looking pretty good for him. Someone just shot up the order. Is that Racebug going up into 5th there? Very impressive lap time from the Williams driver. He'll be feeling pretty good about that one, but Maverick says purple in Sector 2. Again, not really sure whether to trust that or not, but we will see as he's entering now the final section of the lap.
Yeah, and he stays away from the curb of a turn 17. That's one of the easiest places to invalidate. Bit of understeer into 18 through 19, squeeze on the power. And this is really the last place where you can seriously invalidate. A lap runs wide, taps the wall. That won't matter. Sure, it'll cost him some damage. It'll cost him a bit of time in this final corner. But if he can still complete the lap, 35.5, 1,000th shy of what Chegwin was able to do.
Yeah, and he has no option but just to go again as well, because JB and Kenners, one of those will more than likely be able to get up ahead of him. Set pace, so Omabi and Iceman will not be able to improve, but that is okay. They're all comfortably within the top 10 right now. Here is Kenners on his flying lap. The first one that he's managed to keep clean to this point. Almost running too wide there through 7, but he just about holds on to it. Turn 8, a really tough little corner. He's got it just about okay. In towards turn 9, another one where invalidation is possible, but the wall will prevent you from running too wide on exit. That's always a good dissuader, that wall. You don't want to be going into that one. Walter has headed back into the pit, so he'll not be able to improve, but he's probably just about going to be safe, currently sitting there on that 135.1 in P12. But everyone behind him is still out there and on a flying lap, I believe, as Chegwin is currently sitting 14th. JB in 16th, has managed one lap on that set of tyres, but not sure if he's pushing again or not. No, it's going to be back into the pit, so JB will be one of the drivers falling out here in Q1, but will Kenners be joining him or not?
Yeah, let's see. So far, it's looked decent from Kenners. He's been pushing. Sure, he could have carried a bit more corner speed here and there, but otherwise, it's been a decent lapper from the Red Bull driver. His teammate, his D1 teammate, that being said, Peso currently up in 4th place. What can Kenners do? He just needs a 35.5, bit of understeer in the final corner, and across the line is a 35 dead. Maverick on the bubble. Can he find 4/10 with a damaged front wing? And actually, Maverick's run wide down into turn 18. You can see the yellow flag. So Maverick has outbraked himself, and Maverick will be out in Q1.
Yeah, that looks like it's maybe frustration from Maverick there, as he seems to have gone flying into the barrier. He's lost the whole rest of his front wing. And again, he gets bitten. He left it late. He didn't go out in the early part of the session. He thought, I can leave it to the very end. I'll wait till the track's at its fastest. I won't make a mistake. I will put the lap time in that I need. There's only 2 people going out. How hard can it be? And yet he's done exactly that. He is out in Q1 again. And he will not be happy about that at all.
Yeah, and that is just disaster for Maverick. I think he had some wing damage. We saw him tap the wall on the exit of turn at 21 on his first hot lap. And I think that was the difference. I think that is what, I think there must have been some damage. Maybe Maverick can confirm that for us later. But you can see that there are definitely some groups of drivers that are super, super close when it comes to pace. I mean, Maverick and JB close, but I think that's not representative. And you can see just how close it is, going all the way from A2 UK in 10th down to 15th as I desperately try to ignore production, showing that there's only 1,000th of a second between Max and Kenners.
Yeah, indeed. 1,000th of a second between them. And actually, I'm quite impressed by how condensed the whole field was there in Q1. The top 15, 1.5 seconds between them. In general, we have quite a broad field in terms of raw pace. So I think that's actually quite refreshing to see all the drivers being relatively close together at what is one of the the slowest circuits and the longest circuits, and both of those factors will always mean that you're more able to lose time or gain time around a track. So it really ought to be the circuit in the calendar that has the biggest deltas between drivers, but they were relatively close there.
Yeah, and it's weird that we tend to see this when you have a race with wet condition, and it doesn't make sense, and I don't know why this tends to happen, but it does, and maybe it's just because of the fact that you don't need as many dry tires in the race, because you see drivers pushing a lot more in Q1, because it doesn't matter if you use 1, 2, 3 tires, because you won't necessarily need them come the race day or the race session. And your boy Racebug back out of the pits first again. He's on soft tires, so he's going to be looking to do 2, maybe 3 runs on those red wall tires.
Yeah, first out of the pits and then immediately overtaken, as tends to be the case. That's Rafa Martins, one of the new drivers, going past his fellow Portuguese driver there. We now have 3 Portuguese drivers. One of them has fallen out, though, in Q1 in the form of JB, but we do still have Racebug and Rafa Martins flying the red and green flag here in Singapore, and both out there on their outlaps way before the rest of the field. Then we've got AJ following behind as well. AJ is a driver who I want to give a little bit of a mention to here. He has been on form the last couple of races, a 6th and then a 7th in the last 2. And, you know, he definitely didn't go all his way in Monza. We saw him get absolutely rear-ended by Elon Tusk when his screen froze, and that brought out the safety car. The safety car actually did help AJ to get back up through the field. He benefited from having fewer penalties than all the others around him. But nevertheless, it was a solid drive from him in that race, and he's had a couple of good results on the bounce, so he'll be feeling a little bit better. It's a bit more like what we were expecting of him going into this season.
Yeah, and Jacob, I want to play our, good old prediction game. What do you think is going to be that Q2 cutoff time to make it into Q3? And if you want, I'll give my number first, but it's up to you.
Let's have you give your number first.
Okay, I'm going to go with a 34.5.
34.5. Okay. I think that we're going to see... I think that's pretty reasonable. I'm going to say more like a 34.6, I'm going to say. But I think you're in the right ballpark.
And production said 34.632. And actually, I just want to say that these predictions are now voided because I've just realized that there are drivers out on the medium tires. And this is something that we actually wanted to talk about a little bit before we came live, or while we were in that little break where we showed the hot lap video. Because if this was a normal race where we'd have a dry race, yes, we'd expect so many people to be putting on those medium tires to start the race in the mediums and maybe go for the medium hard strategy instead of that two-stop strategy, or, trying to stretch out the softs and making a soft hard work. But because we have that rain, we are now in this really weird situation where nobody knows how soon that rain is going to come down. Yes, they have an estimate. They would have seen on their pit lane MFDs, okay, that rain's going to be coming down in this part of the race. But they don't know. That could be 10 minutes from the race start. It could be 20 minutes from the race start. It could even be 5 minutes. So drivers are going to have to play this game of chance right now. Do they risk doing their Q2 time on soft tires? Because if they start on those Q2 tires, they might have to pit before the rain comes down. And then 2 laps after they pit, the rain comes down and they have lost that 1 pit stop. The third strategy, try to qualify outside the top 10, go for hards, because maybe that rain will come down after the medium tires wear out. So 3 entirely different ideologies coming into this session.
Yeah, for me, it's always the mediums. If I'm not sure when the rain is going to come, but I know it's going to come somewhere in the middle of the race, I'm always going to go for the medium tires, because you can just about hang with the guys on soft tires. You're not going to lose that much. If it's only 6 laps into the race when the rain comes down and the soft tires make it, then so be it. You still haven't lost so much. Your race isn't ruined. But I think running on the hards, your race can be ruined. You can lose a lot, particularly off the start line as well. And when you're at a track where overtaking is as difficult as it is in Singapore, you do not want to be losing a lot of positions off the start, which the hard tires will certainly not help you with. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what the rest of the drivers choose. But a lot of them are then going on these medium tires. We've seen 5 lap times come through on those softs, and none of them particularly fast, I would say. Racebug, the fastest of them, with a 1:34.893. I wonder if they're all getting deltas to then go back out on mediums, because those are some suspiciously slow lap times.
Yeah, I think Racebug and Rafa Martins have pushed somewhat, because Rafa Martins was a little bit down the order in Q1. But the likes of AJ and Oma B definitely have been backing off. Sepp puts in that 34.5 on the medium compound of a tire. Simons a 34.7, so we are seeing some decent times coming through. And another point I want to add about when that rain comes down in the race is, don't forget, the harder the compound of tires, the better they perform in those changeable conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. So if the rain comes down like almost straight away, the hard tires might actually work well because they'll actually get a better launch off the line than the soft. And maybe we'll see something like we saw in the real life Portuguese Grand Prix last season in F1, when there was a lot of varying grip with some light rain, but not quite enough for inters at the start of that race. That was very much good fun. Of course, in this race, it would benefit the hard tires more than it would in real life as well. But, 3 drivers at the top. It's sort of opposite day in the standings at the moment. We got Sepp, Peso, Simons all on mediums in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And then 4th through 8th all on those soft tires, which I think sort of confirms the view that those are not really fully legitimate lap times from the guys on the softs. I think they will just be setting deltas, maybe getting absolute banker times in before looking to go again. Of course, they could be speculatively thinking about qualifying 11th or 12th as well, which would suit some of these drivers no problem. Some of them would much rather do that than manage to get into Q3 and just come through in 9th or 10th. Here comes Dougie Falcons across the line, and he is certainly going for it on his soft tyres, a 1:33.980. That is fractionally faster than what he managed in Q1 on the same set of tyres.
Yeah, and something I want to bring up about the FTW drivers is, as I've experienced this with the lady of D1 herself, Gorn, the FTW drivers like to do this really bad strategy called qualifying on the soft tires in Q2. They always do it, and then they get down on their knees and they pray to the F1 gods that there's a safety car that saves their strategy. So I'm pretty sure that Racebug and probably will be seeing this, or I was going to say from JB, but he's not through, but Rafa Martins as well. He's part of that Portuguese camp. I think they're both going to be trying to qualify through on the soft tires. Whether that's accurate or not remains to be seen in the remainder of this session.
It's like when in real life when you get a team that it doesn't get that much airtime and they want to do something special to get their sponsors on screen, so they take all the fuel out in testing, or they run soft tires in a qualifying where it's just not the right idea or so on. And of course, I don't think the FTW drivers will be getting their sponsors on the screen with this one, unfortunately, but maybe getting some personal pride of seeing themselves managing to make it into Q3. I mean, Racebug has the fastest lap time of the soft runners bar Dougie Falcons in this section of qualifying. He had a very solid time. I think he ended up 5th or 6th in Q1 as well, so he can potentially hope for and be pretty confident in the idea that he might make it in to Q3. That is value, by the way, coming through on medium tires with a 1:34.0. Just shy of Dougie Falcon's time. That would have been very, very hard to take for Dougie if Value had come across the line faster on those medium.
Yeah, it would have been. And 2 things I want to bring up from this is one thing I want to bring up from this is we saw Value in Q1. He put in that 33.6. So there are people probably wondering, is the delta from the softs to the mediums only 0.4 of a second? No. And there's 2 reasons for this. One, Value wasn't fully pushing in Q1. Reason number 2 is that the track is evolving so much here at Singapore. I talked about this a little bit earlier in the show, and that's just how much quicker the track can get from Q1 to Q2, and then it'll get even quicker in Q3. And this is why I was mentioning before, we might be seeing that 32.9 coming through in that final stage of qualifying.
Here is Kenners then. He is rolling the dice with these soft tires, and he seems to be pushing all the way through this lap thus far. In fact, he was down in 0 ERS, but I think he's just making sure it lasts to the end of the lap, because that can be an issue in Singapore. Even though there's so many heavy braking zones, you can run out of the ERSD rate towards the end of the lap, but he looks to have managed it pretty well as he almost runs too wide through the final corner there, across the line in 9th, narrowly inside the top 10 right now, but that is a 1:36.0. Had a bit of a moment in the final corner there, and that will not have helped his lap time, but that is not as fast as Kenners would like to be, I am sure. Iceman invalidated his first attempt, so he's had to go back out on either the same set, or it must be the same set of mediums, I suppose, and he'll be going again on these. Currently sitting down in 12th without a lap time on the board.
Yeah, let's see what Iceman can pull out. 4 drivers yet to set their laps, and all from 4 different teams. And Iceman's going to be one driver who'll definitely wanting to be making it through to that final part of qualifying, having finished the last race in 3rd place. He has 2 podiums to his name so far this season, and he's going to be wanting to make it a 3rd this tonight.
Indeed. His turn 3 wasn't exactly stellar, though. Ran a bit wide, and I tell you what, his turn 5 isn't exactly stellar either, as he ends up in the wall. That is front wing damage for Iceman, and one hell of a heat cycle put through those medium tires as well as he spun round. So those aren't going to be feeling too great, given that he's already tried a lap on them, unless he's managed to find a fresh set of mediums somewhere. But yeah, Iceman, that is rough. He needs to get back into the pits quickly. There's not too much time left in qualifying here. So he will have enough time to get back in, go back out again on a new set, but he might have to go for the softs.
I think he might have to go for the softs, otherwise just go for that, qualify 11th, and then once you see when the rain's going to come down, decide whether you want to start on the mediums, hards, or the softs. And the reason why Iceman spun that is because he took the curb through turn 5. You don't want to take that much curb, it unsettles the car. When you try to put the power down, one wheel's kind of on the track, the other wheel's kind of in the air on the curb, and you just don't get that same traction. AJ currently, he's a purple at the moment. He's 2 seconds up on his PB. And this is looking to be a 1:34 for the Alfa Romeo driver. I doubt it's going to be Dougie Falcon's time, but let's take a look.
It depends on how much he backed off on that previous soft tire lap through this final sector. This has not been a perfect final sector by any means thus far from AJ. We saw him getting pretty hot there into turn 18. The final few corners look okay as he'll head through the penultimate and now the final corner, and he is derating as he comes across the line, losing a bit of time there. A 1:34.814. That's okay, but I'm not sure that's going to be enough for the top 10 come the end of qualifying there on this set of mediums. Simons goes and solidifies his place in the top 10 with his medium tyres going again on that set with a 1:34.4 from the Austrian.
Yeah, and Pesso is the one who's at risk right now, because if Iceman, Max, Walter, and Checkers all do their laps on soft tyres, he's going to be the one dropping it down to a P10. So we'll see how that goes. Something I want to bring up is you mentioned the D-rate that we saw at the end of the lap from AJ. That's what happens if you run full ERS the entire lap. The best place to turn off ERS is right where Water is now. You drop the ERS here because you don't really gain that much speed coming into the Anderson Bridge, and then you can just turn it back up after you come out of the hairpin onto the Esplanade Drive. And Water, he's on the soft tyres, so he's just trying to ensure that he makes it into that final part of qualifying.
Valu reckons he's done enough. He's put his proverbial controller, I'm sure he's on a wheel, but he's put his proverbial controller down and decided that he's going to retire from Q2 with that 1:34.0. That's going to look pretty solid to get him into the final bar of qualifying here. Walter looking a lot less solid right now without a lap time on the board, heading over the second bridge of the lap across that right hand and maybe taking a little bit too much curb there and then not quite enough, but it's just about okay. He lost a couple of tenths there through that little chicane. Final corner we go now and across the line, and it's going to be good enough for 9th, which is close. It's very, very close right now, but surely Iceman, Max, Cheggers, one of these drivers, the rest behind him as well, one of them is probably going to move up ahead of him at least, and then maybe another as well. So he is going to be shaky for getting into Q3 with that one.
Yeah, at the very least, Iceman is going to jump ahead of him, and then with the likes of Cheggers, Oma B, A2 UK, all depends. Are they putting on a set of soft tyres to go? I'd love to see, because at the moment we're just seeing the display of what tyres everyone set their fastest lap on, not what tyres they are currently out. And there you can see as we switch the graphic, everyone from 8 downwards on soft tyres, they are all going to be improving. The likes of Racebug, the likes of AJ even, all in this danger zone.
Yeah, and quite a few of these drivers actually very, very determined to set their lap on medium tyres as they're going back out for a second run on the same set, as Simons did earlier in the session. Sepp and Peso both out there doing that. AJ's actually retired, so he doesn't reckon they have any need to. He reckons he's safe down there in 7th, or at least that he can't get another lap in. But Sepp and Peso thinking that they will need to go back out on track and solidify their place. Oma B goes up ahead of AJ there and into 7th in the Mercedes, joining the rest of the medium tyre runners in the upper midfield there. Across the line for Cheggers, and he's into 8th, so that puts AJ a little bit further down as well, and now he's looking rather less safe there in 9th and retired from the session, so he cannot respond on those medium tyres. He might well be getting a sort of 11th or 12th place start, but that might not be so bad for him.
Yeah, and Iceman, after that front wing damage, he came into the pits, he's going back out. He's going to be able to start his lap with about 30 seconds to spare. Leaves a bit of a gap between himself and the Ferrari up ahead. I believe that is a Dougie. And only Sepp and Peso right now, only they know how much quicker they could go on the medium tyres. You know, objectively, I'd say put on the softs, and if you're going to drop outside the top 10, then complete your lap. And if you're not, well, just abort your lap. But they've decided that they have the pace in the medium tyres to find that extra tenth or so.
I've got some cursed information for you. Don't you, Falcons? I think he's out there. Is he on a flying lap right now on the same set of soft tires that he set his initial flying lap on? Or did he? Is this a new set of soft tires that he backed out of his previous lap on? Oh, never mind, never mind. Sorry, that's my mistake. He is on fresh tires. I hadn't realized the graphic had changed. As we now are reaching the end of Q2, and so Walter is not going to be able to improve, sitting in the pit lane. So he will be starting outside of the top 10. He will have free choice of tires going into this one. Race bug as well, back into the pits for the Williams driver. So one of the drivers we had tipped to probably make it into Q3 has not been able to do so. Kenners, Iceman, Max are the ones who need to improve right now. Kenners has already committed to one lap on this set of soft tires. I'm sure he'll be able to go again, though. So we'll see if he has backed out or not. But here comes Iceman through the second set, coming towards the end of that now and into the third. And it's all looked more or less okay from the Macedonian thus far this lap. On through this corner. You can hook yourself up on the left-hand curb there, and he did so nicely. Under the bridge we go. And not getting the car as far over to the left as some others have been able to before that right-hander there. A lot of curb through that one and again through there as well. Leaves a bit of margin on the exit, but I think that's going to be okay for the Macedonian as he comes up towards the line now. Where is this going to put him? It's good enough for third. So he comfortably makes it into Q3 in the end there. Dougie Falcons, by the way, just went 0.7 of a second faster at the front. So he's been holding something back in the locker, and he wanted to prove that. Maybe put a bit of the fight to value just before we get into Q3 here. Now Max is the final one who can challenge. Kenners has come across the line and not improved, so he's starting at best 14th, but is it going to be 15th? Yes, it is, as Max just squeaks into the top 10 at the expense of Chegwin.
Chegwin drops out by 0.03 of a second. That is tight, but you know, we talked about how Max has been improving over the course of the season, and he's gone from being, you know, pretty much towards the back of the grid to, you know, having those races where he's battling with the likes of AJ, Chegwin, and A2, and we're seeing proof of that right here.
Yeah, nicely done from Max. A2 UK getting through in 9th on mediums as well. That is good news for him. Interesting to see what Chegwin, what AJ can do starting from 11th and 12th. Those are probably some of the good places to start, especially, you know, because you'll be able to have the free choice of tires. Max ahead's going to be on those softs, so he's going to be vulnerable to those cars behind, potentially, and especially if he has to come into the pit and the timing doesn't go right with the rain as well, which is the risk you run here. But we will see once we get into the race. Of course, this could all be a moot point. It could well suit the soft tire runners if it comes down in the first few laps.
Yeah, and again, I do want to talk about this very minute, but it could be important detail. We're starting in the dry conditions and we're planning on ending in the dry conditions. Now, we don't know when that crossover will happen. It could happen on the first lap. We could be crossing back over to the dries on the last lap of the race. But what this does mean is that if those are two periods of dryness, let's say, or lack of rain is short enough, it means you can be running the soft tires in both of those stints. And for the drivers who are using all of their soft tires to get into Q3 and then using another 2 sets of soft tires in Q3, they're not going to have any fresh softs left. So they could be at a massive disadvantage in that final stage of the race. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but I personally, as a strategist or as a driver, like to have all of my cards open and available to me.
Yeah, certainly. It just gives you that flexibility once you get into the race that can be so important. I mean, some of the drivers may not even realize they'll be flicking through their tire choices, and then they'll get to the soft tires, and it's not going to be a filled-in circle on the little HUD, and they're going to be pretty upset when they discover that, I'm sure, if it comes to that towards the end of the race. But that is a big if, and something we will not discover for quite a while, as we are now into Q3 for the final qualifying session of the day here in Singapore. And it's going to be an interesting shootout for pole here. Valu still obviously has a lot left to show. But Dougie Falcons did really throw down the gauntlet there with that 33.2 right at the death, suddenly going 0.7 quicker than he has done at any point of qualifying until then.
Yeah, and for me, my predictions is Valu from Dougie Falcons, and then either Sepp or Peso. I don't know which one. They've been so closely matched in Q1, in Q2, and I'm guessing in Q3 as well. And then I think Iceman's going to be the one lining up in 5th place, probably around the likes of Rafa Martins and Omar B behind.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assumption. A2 UK might be able to throw something in there as well. We'll see Of course, he was on the medium tires, but so were quite a few of the other drivers making it into Q3. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I've been very, very impressed with Sepp thus far in this qualifying. So hopefully he'll be able to continue to impress in this final part.
Yeah, I've been receiving some regular updates from Gaunt in the Discord chat, and she's saying that her drivers are very confident with the soft tires in the race. So hopefully that confidence does pay out for them. They could be looking very, very smart, or well, very, very silly after about 5 minutes into the race.
Indeed, yeah, that's going to be a bit of a coin flip for them. But if they're confident in it, then great for them. I'm very, very happy for them. At least they'll be feeling good for the remainder of qualifying, or as good as they can feel, having been knocked out there. But here we go then with Simons. He will be, I believe, the first driver to start a flying lap in the third and final part of qualifying here. The Austrian in the Ferrari making it into Q3. That's a bit of a coup for him. He'll be happy with that, and he'll want to record his first top 10 finish of the season in the race as well. 13th and 12th in the last two races, and a DNF before that. So it's not really gone all his way thus far since entering the league. Of course, had that race ban towards the beginning of the season as well. So he would just love a nice 7th, 8th, 9th place finish in this race.
Yeah, his best result so far, that 11th place in Baku. Of course, purple in Sector 1 as he's the first driver out, with the exception of... Actually, I think that's a value on an out lap, so Simons is the first driver on a hot lap. And to be honest, here in Q3, you really want to be getting into those low 34s to stand a chance of having a good starting position.
Indeed. And I'm actually now seeing in the Twitch chat that Gaunt is accusing you of twisting her words a little bit here. Confident starting on the tyres rather than being confident on the tyres. I'm not quite sure where I see the distinction is, but I assume there must be one.
Gaunt's just being weird. She just wants to be wrong. It's her thing. She gets a kick out of it.
Well, who doesn't? But anyway, here comes Simons then into the final sector of the lap. You can't respond because I'm still talking about Simons as we head up to the bridge. They'll have to go under here on the left-hander, taking it nice and tight without clipping the wall on the inside. That is the perfect way to do that. Clunking over that curb on the exit, maybe taking just about the right amount of curb there through 20 and 21 as well. This has looked pretty solid. Bit of an aggressive turn into the final corner there. Might have scrubbed off a little bit of speed, but it's a 1:34.040 from the Austrian. Faster than he's managed thus far in qualifying, and a good lap for sure.
Yeah, a very good lap from Simons. This is the kind of pace that we were expecting from him at the start of the season. Omar B putting in a 33.8, but it was invalidated. What can Iceman do? Because Iceman's been a driver that I feel has been lacking a lot so far in qualifying. Now, does he have an ace in his sleeve, or does he just struggle for pace here at the Marina Bay circuit? And again, he loses his front wing. A2 UK has to back out of a lap as Iceman reverses as quickly as he can to get out of the way.
Oh, that is a hopeless feeling for Iceman. Looking back and seeing A2 UK and knowing you can't get out of the way no matter what you do. Zero front wing left. I think he actually bumped the wall, ran wide on the first part of the bridge, bumped the wall in the middle, and then spun round. So, yeah, not good news for him. Valu has done his customary thing of invalidating his first attempt in the final part of qualifying and putting the pressure on himself before he inevitably smashes it and grabs pole anyway. But nevertheless, it's nice to see that he is struggling just a little bit here compared to what we would usually. And we're going to see, a rare camera shot here of Peso. Not the best camera shot I've ever seen, but a rare one nevertheless. The far chase, or the not quite so far chase.
One that I'm too used to of seeing from racing with him in Division 1.
Oh, right. Is that right? Is that what he chooses to race with?
No, it's because I'm always behind him.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, no, yeah. That was nicely done. That was my bad. A good joke. Peso now heading into the final sector of the lap. And running a bit wide there through what is turn 16. And into 18 we now go, where Iceman dropped it. And no such problems for the Czech driver in the Red Bull. Running a bit wide there on the entry to 20. That's going to compromise him through 21. And you cannot make up the speed on the exit of 21 because the wall is there. Through the final couple of corners and up to the line. It is a 1:34.0 as well, but it is critically 35 hundredths of a second faster than Simons. 3 drivers on 1:34.0s right now.
I knew it'd be close between Peso and Sepp. I didn't realize Simons would be close, and yet Simons would still sandwich his car in between them. But there you go. Now, Valu is on a hot lap, but he is on it's his second lap on those soft tires. Dougie Falcons on a lap. He's purple at the end of Sector 2. We expect Dougie and Value to be at the front of the grid. Again, setups could come into play. We don't know if people are driving entirely dry or wet setups, and ride heights and anti-roll bars can all play an impact on how fast you go on a hot lap here at Singapore. But Dougie Falcons into the end of Sector 3, and it hasn't looked quick so far.
Yeah, that all looked very committed through the final sector, but nothing that was over the limit either. Not quite so aggressive into the final corner as his teammate Simons, and it's a 1:33.399. Not quite so fast as he managed at the end of Q2, but nevertheless a very, very good benchmark time indeed, especially with Value having invalidated for the second time. So back into the pits now for the Finnish driver. And if there was ever a slight Achilles heel to Value, it is the tendency to invalidate these laps. Here, just, you know, occasionally, and particularly at the beginning stages of Q3, which really does pile on the pressure to try and snatch pole at the very end. It always seems to work out, but he does tend to end races with a penalty as well, but never usually more than one.
Yeah, and it almost cost him at Monza as well, almost cost him what looked like a guaranteed race win. So, I mean, we saw again at Monza, Value invalidated that first lap time, and on his second lap, he blew everyone out of the park. But here at Singapore, a much longer lap, and that might mean that Value just has to be that little bit careful for that much longer. And it might mean that Dougie Falcons could be seeing his first pole of the season.
So currently only 4 lap times on the board with 4 minutes remaining in Q3. That is not what we would usually be expected to see. A few lap times invalidated, a crash from Iceman that got in the way of A2 UK, forced him to back out of his lap as well. So a few different reasons for the drivers not to have been able to set a lap time thus far. But it is going to feel good for those that have. Sepp, Simons, Peso, and Dougie Falcons are all going to be pretty happy. Interesting to see Simons dividing Peso and Sepp here, who we sort of had nailed on as a potential second row. They did look like they were really solid in the first couple of parts of qualifying, and I didn't think Simons was going to be quite at that level. Right now, he is mixing it with those guys.
Yeah, I mean, still, 6 drivers to do their laps, and I mean, we were saying before, and I agreed with you, you know, Singapore's not one of the easiest tracks to invalidate your laps, but it's just been the way that everyone's been pushing so much on that first Q3 run that they've all pretty much invalidated. Simons 100th down at the end of Sector 1, and I mean, that pretty much means he's a dead on even right now, and that he can easily find himself in second as he backs out of the lap. So clearly he's made a little bit of a mistake into turn 8, and he's decided to back off and go for another run.
It was only a very little mistake, though, so I'm surprised that was enough for Simons to completely back out of the lap, but that probably shows confidence in his previous lap as well, that he doesn't think he can go that much faster unless he really gets the perfect lap, because otherwise you'd keep pushing. If there was more time to be found in the rest of the lap and you knew it, you'd keep pushing even though there was a slight mistake. So Simons backing out that early, maybe a little bit telling that he doesn't have that much more to give here in qualifying with that 1:34.040 at the moment. Narrowly shy of what Peso was able to do in the Red Bull. Here is Value then on an out lap. Omabi and Rafa Martins have both started flying laps in the Mercedes and the Haas respectively. Value just getting towards the end of his out lap here. And he's going to have to be very, very careful.
I've just realized Peso's making his way out of the pits now, but Simons, oh, pardon me, not Simons, Dougie Falcons. Okay, never mind, Dougie Falcons is coming out of the pits. I thought he wouldn't have enough time, but he clearly does. So Omar B's got Iceman ahead, but Iceman's paused. You can see he's got the AI screen, which means he's not going to get out of the way, or, well, I think Omar B will still be complaining about that somewhat, and we can't quite see if Omar B's lost time as he has not yet set a lap.
Well, yeah, he's still pushing, but that might just be because he actually needs to get a lap time through. I think he probably was a bit hesitant on the throttle of the exit of turn 7 there. I mean, it'd be hard not to be. Even if Iceman's car would ghost, and I'm pretty sure it would, it's very hard to mentally make yourself just drive straight at the car that you're not sure is going to disappear or not. So I think he probably did lose a little bit of time there, the Turkish driver. He heads now into this heavy braking zone here for turn 14. Not running too wide on the exit. That is one of the possible places to invalidate. Curved braking zone into 16 through 17 now, and that all looked okay. 18, you got to be careful. Don't turn in too early. Don't turn in too late. That was a tiny bit on the late side there from the Mercedes driver, but he's got away with it. Into 20, early turn in. Didn't quite get the corner cut though. I'm surprised about that. That was a too early turn in and maybe had to get a little bit off the throttle to ensure a no corner cut there. But across the line, it's only good enough for fifth, a 1:34.675. So yeah, not a very good lap from the Turk. And I think that a part of that, of course, will have been that incident with Iceman.
Value purple, and I think that's two things that probably go with each other more than anything else in the world. I thought it was milk and cereal, but no, it's actually value and purple. He has a bit of a moment on the exit of turn 19, but he keeps it all on circuit. He doesn't invalidate, and that's what he needs to do. The ERS is off. It is just raw power, a 32.8. Oh, what a lap from Value.
I don't know what to say. I was about to say that was a slightly messy final few corners there from Value. It wasn't perfect. PT rated in the final corner. I guess it doesn't matter. A 1:32.844 right at the death of qualifying here. I'm not sure if he's going to go again or not, but that is one hell of a lap time. Dougie Falcons will have the opportunity to respond, but will he have the pace to respond? That is going to be the million-dollar question. Iceman almost losing it again over the Anderson Bridge. I don't think he's got a setup that he's truly comfortable with here in Singapore. He is struggling to keep this car pointing in the right direction right now. The Haas bucking, kicking in several of the acceleration zones through turn 14, leaving a little bit of margin there on the exit of that corner, avoiding the corner cut like his life depends on it. A bit more aggressive there through 16, 17. Towards 18 we go. Rafa Martins has come across the line only with a 1:34.143, so he'll be disappointed with that maximum 6th place start for him, but probably going to be falling further down the order with the likes of A2 UK and Iceman coming across the line. A2 will not be able to overtake him as it's a 1:34.159, so narrowly behind Rafa Martins. Here comes Iceman, and it's good enough for third into the 33s. The third driver to do so in this final part of qualifying with a 1:33.840. Max has invalidated. He will not be able to improve.
Oh, Omar B's coming into the pit. Sepp's going to complete his lap. Will Sepp improve? No, Sepp doesn't. So it's just a Peso and Dougie on their laps right now. Peso crosses the line. 33.6 for the Division 1 driver. And Dougie Falcons not able to improve, Jacob.
Yeah, Dougie, I think he's actually right behind Value on track. Where is Dougie? Can we take a look at him? He's coming into the final corner now, I believe, in the Ferrari. And there you go. The track is red because he is invalidated. He did go faster, but it was only a 33.2 anyway, so it would not have changed his position. And Dougie Falcons cannot quite match Value once again.
Yeah, but wow, the pace that Value has shown tonight, again, always when it matters, Value is able to pull out that lap. But again, Jacob, we don't know where people's strategies are sitting. Some people might be going for slightly more wet-oriented setups, riding slightly higher ride heights. Usually when you have a wet setup, or at least here at Singapore, you'd probably run less front wing because of the tyre wear. But as we mentioned, with the changing conditions, the tyre wear not as important. And you can switch from the 911 wings that you would run in the dry conditions to the 711 because front wing is not part of park thermic conditions. And personally, I think the dry setup is the smarter because you can overtake in the dry much easier than you can in the wet. So as long as you have that track position and you have that less front wing in the race, it's going to be very, very difficult for drivers behind you to overtake you in the wet conditions.
So while the drivers load into the game and then source out those setups, we're going to be serving you a little bit of an ad break here, at least for those of you who are being nice and have your ad blocker disabled for us. So to those of you who will have the ad, we'll see you in a moment. And to those of you who are still...
Stay tuned.
All right, hello everybody. Sorry for that little intermission there. We remembered halfway through that one that the subs can actually still watch without ads, so sorry to those of you who are subscribed. That is not the service we wanted to bring you there, but nevertheless, it's not much of a more interesting screen here, to be fair, as we're just seeing the ticks arrive on the drivers on the right-hand side.
All right, Jacob, I would ask, what's your prediction for, who's going to win the race? But I think we all know that. Let's have predictions for third, because I have a feeling that Dougie's going to be taking second.
For third specifically, I am going to say... Peso looks good for it. I'm going to say Peso.
Peso. Okay. I think, we've got the likes of Sepp, we've got Rafa Martin, Simons as well, and of course Iceman, who's starting in fourth, all in that battle. So we'll see how things do pan out. Now, when we last had a dry to wet race in Premier X, it was in France and the rain started coming down towards the end of the formation lap. At the moment, it doesn't look like the rain is starting to drop down just yet.
No, certainly not. The rain not hitting the circuit yet. And the drivers, most of them will be pretty relieved about that, I'm sure. Marancello, by the way, has joined us for the race, was not here for qualifying, but the Italian reserve driver is jumping into the second McLaren for this one, and will be starting at the very back of the grid in 18th, just behind JB and then Maverick as well, who were the two drivers who fell out all the way back in Q1. So they have been sitting there for a while, waiting, itching, I'm sure, to get going again here at Singapore, and now they are finally able to do so with the outlap, the formation lap at least. And if we could quickly flit over and see what tyres everyone is running, to get an idea of what those outside of the top 10 are on, it's only a couple of them going for the medium tyres. That is really interesting. So they must believe that the rain is coming really quite soon. Racebug, Walter, Kenners, Maverick, and JB all going for softs.
Yeah, and as we talked about before, the harder compound of tires works better in that crossover phase. So it means that the rain isn't coming, within a lap, within 2 laps, but maybe after about 4 laps or something, you can see that the mediums can easily make it to lap 9. So if the rain doesn't come by about lap 6, I think those soft tire runners are going to be in a really tricky situation, and they may end up jumping the gun at pitting 1 lap too early for those intermediate tires, and then the intermediates can burn out. Also, depending how quickly that rainfall comes, the medium tire runners might almost certainly be able to kind of stretch through that 1 lap phase where it gets too wet for the inters and wet enough for the full wets. Final thing I want to bring up, Maverick, JB, and Marancello at the back of the grid. 3 quick drivers. They're going to be working their way up like a hot knife through butter.
Well, they'll certainly be hoping to do so. It will be tough, as it always is in Singapore, to get past, and even more so once the rain starts to come down. That they will have their work cut out for them, but if anyone is up to it, I'm sure those 3 drivers will be able to give it a good run for its money at the very least. Kenners might be looking in his rearview mirror with a little bit of concern with those 3, particularly Maverick and Marancello behind. JB, a bit more of a sort of untested talent in the league thus far, but we'll see what he can do. Good chance to showcase himself from near the back of the grid here in that Renault. If he can make up a lot of positions in the race, then he'll have done a good account of himself in his debut in Premier X. But here we are then, onto the grid at the Marina Bay Circuit in Singapore as the lights are coming on. They go out, and we are underway straight away here. Value with a good start off the line, but Dougie Falcons look to have a pretty good getaway as well in towards turn 1. He's looking to challenge the Finn, and he bumps him wide, pushing him off the road through turn 2. He'll have the inside for turn 3, the soft tyres. Paying off there for Dougie Falcons off the line, and he manages to take P1 away. But will he manage it through 5? Yes, he does. Nice stuff from Dougie. Value will not have it all his own way here in this race. Peso still in third. Iceman fourth. Sepp up to 5th, with Simons losing out 2 positions to Sepp. And A2 UK behind. Ken has picked up a 5-second penalty for corner cutting and gaining 2 places. That's not going to suit him terribly well. Maverick has had a great start up into 12th.
Yeah, Maverick's had a fantastic start, and Dougie making those soft tires switch on instantly. You can see Maverick having a little look. That's the Red Bull of Kenneth. He's trying to go around the outside of it, and I think he's pulled it off as well. And now AJ's going to try to follow through.
We will see. No, he can't quite do it there, but AJ chomping at the bit, wanting to get past Ken as he's had a little bit of a poor start off the line. Has AJ Walter still down in 15th. Racebug has dropped all the way to the very back. I'm not sure if we're actually desynchronized from him or not, but it does say 1 lap, which sometimes means that we're desynchronized, so hopefully we're seeing him in the right place. But here we go with Sepp up the inside of Iceman. That is Sepp on mediums compared to the softs of Iceman, so Iceman's still struggling there, even though he has the tyre advantage at this stage of the race. Sepp really chomping at the bit to get past A2 UK close behind, and Simons. They'll all be looking to get past Iceman, with the Macedonian already falling outside of a second of Peso up ahead.
Yeah, Iceman really struggling on these soft tires, and I was going to bring up how Dougie Falcons was able to get such a good launch on his soft tires, but Iceman really struggling, wasn't even able to get alongside Peso into turn 1, so I'm not sure what's happened for Iceman. He's running wide through the final corner as well, so Iceman really struggling. Does he have front wing damage? It does not look like it, so Iceman just has a massive pace disadvantage here, it seems.
Yeah, it's just that car seemed to be trying to get away from him every single corner. In qualifying, he was struggling to keep it pointing in a straight line. He might be struggling here, but no, it is Sepp that comes off worse. Up the inside into turn 5 he went. It was a bit of a bold move, and he ends up in the wall as a result of it there. And with a significant chunk of front wing damage as well, down at the very back of the order.
Silly move from Sepp. He's got time. He can see Iceman struggling down the inside. I mean, maybe Iceman closed the door on him. We'll have to see. Either way, Sepp thought he could go in. I personally didn't see his car get halfway alongside Iceman, so I think that was an audacious move from Sepp, and he gets punished for it.
Yeah, I have to see some closer replays afterwards as well, if any will be available, of course.
Oh,
but it is Dougie Falcons.
A2 UK made a mistake into turn 8. I think he hit the wall on exit, so I'm not sure if that was contact with another driver that caused that, but he's now at the back of the grid.
Another driver to fall by the wayside, then 3 have suffered particularly thus far in this race. Racebug at the very back, being showed at the very front for a moment there, but he had come into the pits to repair some front wing damage he got on the opening lap. A2 UK falling down, and now Sepp as well. So those 3 drivers will be struggling to make a good race of it here. But of course, with the rain guaranteed to come down and with safety cars a distinct likelihood at this circuit, there is still every opportunity for these guys, so they should keep going with it, and they look to be doing so for now. It is Cheggers who's up in a decent position right now, running in the top 10. He'll be pretty happy with that one. Max up ahead on the soft tires, harassing the rear end of Omar B, and Rafa Martins further along.
Yeah, and Value's doing exactly what he needs to do, which is staying within 1 second of Dougie, staying within that DRS zone, and just letting Dougie pull him along, because in a few laps' time, those softs are going to be getting that little bit slower. And maybe Peso will decide that this is his lap to make a move. He's got the DRS wide open, but a little bit too far back. And don't forget, the more these two battle, the better this is for Peso. And if those soft tires don't last until the rain, Peso will all of a sudden find himself in a prime position, as we see Simons running a little bit wide. Now he'll look for the inside. No, forced to slot in behind Iceman.
Iceman not making any friends here today, that much is for sure. He's doing a good job of defending from the onslaught of the cars behind, but Simons getting frustrated there, trying to overtake in a rather unorthodox manner around the outside there, and he was not able to make it work. Iceman holding on to 4th for now. He's already fought off the charge of Sepp. Simons up next. Rafa Martins actually was falling a little bit further away, but Iceman has involved in that battle with Simons, has lost some time to his Haas teammate as well, who is struggling on those soft tires just like Iceman is. And we now see Kenners pretty close up behind Maverick. Kenners, of course, with that penalty from the start of the race, and Valu already with a 3-second time penalty. That could spice things up later on.
It really could, especially if there is a late safety car, and with a drying track that is, well, more than possible, let's say. But Valu, he's going to have to keep it clean, and I wonder, maybe he tried to battle with Dougie and got squeezed a little bit, or maybe it was just an error of his own. Either way, he's 2 tenths behind, and that's the same for Simons on the back of Iceman, who has been waiting in. The more he waits, the better his mediums will be relative to Iceman's soft tires.
I think those softs are falling off already, actually. I mean, you can see
Maverick in
Valu.
the background, he's actually gone for a move, and he has taken water into turn 1.
Nice move there from Maverick. And, of course, it's not actually Walter. That is Walter's Mank, a.k.a. Chegwin. Knew it would catch one of us out in this race. And Chegwin falling down into 10th there, but he'll still be pretty happy with that one. He was given a bit of a squeeze in the braking zone, but here comes Valu up the inside of Dougie Falcons into turn 7, and up into the lead he goes, getting past the Ferrari driver. Those softs starting to fall away for drivers throughout the field right now. And none
it's raining,
less so
Jacob.
than Dougie
You can
Falcons.
see the rain. It's starting to drop down. And remember, here at Singapore, we're talking a 1 minute 35-second lap time. If you stay out for 1 lap too long, that could be critical.
And here we see Rafa Martins and over B, and no, that's gone terribly, terribly wrong for both of them. Omar's straight out of the race. He has lost one of the wheels off of his wagon, shunted into the wall by Rafa Martins, who didn't quite realize he was alongside. And now the rain, you can see it coming down properly right here. Sepp already on intermediate tyres. Surely those are going to burn up. Marankello as well has opted for the green walled inters, but I think that's going to be a lap too early from those guys. The rain is coming down, sure, but I don't think it's coming down enough to justify that. They are going to lose a lot of the valuable part of those tyres on this lap right here, because they're going to get way too hot and wear out very quickly. Max, by the way, lost a couple of positions over that last lap, both to Maverick and then to Cheggers, who have both been able to get past. Was that a driver going rather deep there? No, they all managed to just about do it okay. Yellows in sectors 1, 2, and 3 right now.
Yeah, and I think Oma B, that's a really silly place to look for a mover down the inside of turn 7, especially when you're that far back. If you're alongside, sure, go for it. But a late move, and he was always going to go into the wall. Rafa Martins, thankfully for him, he's able to stay out without any damage. And now drivers are diving on into the pits for those intermediate tires. And, well, we'll have to see how it all plays out for them.
Rafa Martins, Cheggers, Max, Kenners all into the pits, but not many other drivers following suit at this stage. Only those 4 pitting on this lap. Maybe Racebug will do the same when he comes through as well. That is a front wing change for Cheggers. We didn't quite see where he picked up that damage, but nevertheless, that might explain why he decided to come into the pits maybe a lap earlier than most of the others would be expecting to. Interesting, though, that both Alpha Tauris out there towards the front, both Ferraris as well, both Alfa Romeos close to each other on circuit, and all of those cars still yet to pit, so they are probably going to have to be concerned about double stacking in these pit stops.
And something else, Peso now on those medium tires, you can see now the harder to compound tires, not only are they in better condition than softs, but in these wet conditions, the harder tires that perform better, and Dougie Falcons has been struggling so much, and he is now just a bait for Peso to take, and he's going to have to pit at the end of this lap for the intermediate tires, and maybe Peso and Valu can try to hold out for 1 lap longer, maybe hope that the rain comes down hard enough for full wets.
Yeah, that is rough for Dougie Falcons. He's losing so much time to Valu right now. 5.3. He overtook him, a lap and a half ago, and now that gap is absolutely astronomical. The DRS has just been disabled, so that's usually the good telling point to know when the cutoff is to go on to those intermediate tires.
Yeah, let's see, because as you mentioned, DRS disabled. This is the time to pit usually, and you can see Simons is going to dive on in. Peso will dive in as well. So Peso wasn't able to get the mediums to work over the softs, it seems. But either way, he's on the back of the Ferrari. He'll be happy with this first stint. And let's see then. Dougie Falcons will dive on into the pits. Won't get held up by his teammate Simons, who follows him in. Simons will come out of this fairly badly. Will lose about 5 or so seconds due to being held up by Dougie. Valu comes out of the pits. Will he be in any traffic? No, because everyone else is pitting for the intermediate tires. As the Dougie Falcons and Peso come out 7 seconds behind. Now, Iceman has put on the full wet. So Iceman clearly thinks that, yes, his wet tires will be struggling. They'll burn up a little bit in this first lap. But if the rain keeps on coming down and everyone has to pit at the end of this lap for those full wets, Iceman could find himself in the lead of the race. And I actually hope that we can ride on board with the Iceman to see how he's performing to the drivers around him. You've got Rafa Martins just up ahead, 1.3 seconds. Let's keep an eye on how that gap changes, because if he's not losing too much time, that means we are very close to the crossover point. He's already lost half a second through one corner, so the full wet's definitely slower than the intermediates at this point in time.
Yeah, not only slow, but they'll get consistently worse. Every lap he goes around, they'll be getting hotter and hotter. And you can see him struggling to hold on to the car. Of course, he was doing that on the dry tires in dry conditions as well. But that is a big gamble for someone who was in a relatively solid position in this race. Valu still leading from Dougie Falcons, 6 seconds between those. Peso in third. And look just how much slower Iceman is on those blue-walled wet tires. He gets absolutely breezed past there by Maverick.
And he moved to the back end completely. And for Iceman, he knew that the wets would be in a terrible situation when he pit onto them. All he had to do was take it easy, take it cautiously. It doesn't matter if you lose 10 seconds a lap, as long as when the rain fully comes down, your wets are still in a good condition. Iceman takes a gamble, and the gamble does not pay off.
Indeed, yeah, a bit of a three-point turn there as well. Not the cleanest way to get around. Kenners, by the way, up in 9th at the moment, despite the penalties he has after the pit stop shaking out there. So he's going to be feeling pretty good about that one. Bit of a train behind AJ, down 11th all the way to Marinkello in 16th. The early pitters onto those intermediate tires. It hasn't suited them terribly well. Look at Sepp down in 13th. Of course, after that incident earlier on in the race, it's not too surprising, but he will be very, very disappointed with how this race is going. Not quite as disappointed maybe as the previous race in Monza, but still he'll be unhappy with that one. JB looking to harass AJ right now, who is really struggling for pace out there. I wonder if he's got a bit of front wing damage in that Alfa Romeo. That looked all intact though, to be fair. So they will be getting up to the rear end of Iceman, which may well throw a rather grey cat amongst these pigeons.
Yeah, a great cat to spell the least.
Oh,
And oh no,
well,
never
never
mind.
mind.
Iceman's lost it again. That's his front wing done and dusted. He's going to have to pit, and well, he might have to pit for the intermediate tyres as he tries to spin the car around. And Iceman's day is just going from bad to worse. He's in desperate need of a safety car here at Marina Bay.
I mean, this is Felipe Massa, Silverstone 2008 sort of stuff. He's spinning almost every time we're on board with him, not just in the race, but in qualifying as well. Iceman is not hooked up to this circuit. He managed to drag out some decent lap time in qualifying in the end to be on the second row of the grid, but in the race, it has definitely not gone his way. Further up the order, Dougie Falcons is still losing time to Valu, but only just. Ever since they both came in for those intermediate tyres, the gap has more or less stagnated. It was about 6 seconds of coming out of the pits. It's now up to 6.2, but Dougie could be relatively happy with the way he's keeping Valu just about in touch.
Yeah, and we're seeing this battle from AJ in 10th all the way down to Marincello in P15. Every driver separated by less than a second. Actually, Chegwin is on the back of Max. They're very close together right now in the battle for P7. So we might be seeing a move. If Chegwin wants to look for a late dive, he'll have the front end absolutely slammed, shut by Max, as Max is entitled to do. Chegwin with that late look, but you have to be aggressive to find a move here at Singapore in the wet.
I mean, I think that wasn't Cheggers trying to make the move. I think that was Cheggers trying to scare Max into just driving into the wall. He wasn't able to get that particular scare factor there, and he then immediately picked himself up a 3-second time penalty as well, which is going to make him rather less intimidating in the rear wings of that Renault, because Max will know that he is pushing to the absolute limit right now if he's picking up those penalties. Up ahead of them, Maverick's been able to gap them pretty comfortably now. He himself is in a bit of an island, 4.1 seconds behind Rafa Martins, who is on another island with 6 seconds up to Simoms, who is on another island, 8.2 seconds behind Peso. So up towards this sort of top few ends of the points, some pretty big gaps starting to form.
Yeah, we are starting to see those gaps. And, you know, Singapore is a track that really shows a difference in driver quality, and the rain just adds it to that discrepancy. And that's why we're starting to see these gaps form. And then even if you are a slower driver, it doesn't matter because the guys behind just can't get past you. You know, the run into turn 7 through the Raffles Boulevard is a good place to overtake, but it's probably not the best. In fact, maybe looking down into turn 10 is a really good opportunity just because of the high traction zones of turn 8 and turn 9. And if you can get the run, you can try to get alongside. But here comes JB looking for a move on the Alfa Romeo down the inside, nice and late on the brakes. But can the Alfa hold it around the outside? And the answer might be yes here, Jacob.
Yeah, that was not kind from JB on the exit of turn 7, but there is enough runoff there that AJ has been able to fight back regardless. Still going side by side here through 9 that runs out of road on the exit, but AJ doesn't run out. That's a big moment for JB under traction as well. Sepp might look to get involved, but no, it's going to be as you were once we get down into turn 10. Sepp maybe, almost getting alongside JB there. That would have ended up with a racing point in the wall for sure. But they all just stay as they are despite all these attempts from JB to get past AJ, who is holding his ground well, but he has got zero pace in that Alpha right now.
Yeah, he's just really struggling, and maybe this is a byproduct of going for that dry setup. Maybe he's running those 911 wings and just struggling that little bit, either with tire wear, traction, who knows. But the Alfa Romeo not having a good time of things right now, and JB searching for any way through. The move that he looked for was fantastic. He just needs to be able to pull it off, have that little bit more bravery on the traction to pull up further ahead when he does go for the move again. And now you can see still slotting in behind as he makes his way down into turns 20 and 21. And it's all about picking your moment and then just dumping that entire energy storage. And here at Singapore, it's so easy to save your energy. You're always at about 80% ERS. And now Sepp, we know Sepp's quick, and he's on the back of JB as well.
Indeed, yeah, and still just such frantic battling between those two. And then further back, the two McLarens starting to fall away just a little bit there. Not been a glorious race for the McLaren team, that is for sure, as Walter puts a little bit of a full stop after that one by picking up a time penalty at just the right moment there. Very convenient for the point I was trying to make. Thank you very much, Walter. But down in 14th, he will not be too happy with his current status in this race. Kenners will be just absolutely chuffed to bits that AJ is driving such a train right now, because Kenners does have more pace than AJ, if only just by a little bit here. And the Red Bull driver will be very, very happy with the way things are currently going, even with that penalty. So It would be by far his best points haul of the season thus far, if you can manage a ninth place finish. He's had a very disappointing season, all things considered. So this would be a big result going into the latter stages of the Premier X season. Here then is Chegwin and Max up ahead. They're still trying to battle here. Chegwin's still trying to get past, but he cannot quite get alongside the German. Frustration between these two. As further down the order, it looks like there is Sepp. A lot of battling going on. That is a Walter having got past A2 UK. One of the Alfa Romeos being dispatched, but will the other one be able to hold on to 10th? JB thinks about a move up the inside, but again, nothing doing there into 14.
Yeah, and I think A2's made a bit of a mistake. He's dropped really far back from Sepp and Walter. Also, Max having a fantastic drive as well as kind of those two looking to gain some big points. And at least for Max, it's been deserved. It's been a long time coming, and I hope I haven't jinxed that as a Simon. But where has he done that? That is on the exit of turn 3. He's been there, and that's a safety car as well. Everything's going to start to Constantina up. And is it time for full wets? If someone takes the risk and pits instantly onto those full wets, they could be in a fantastic position as Maverick gets a drive-through for speeding under the safety car.
Yeah, that is not what you need to be picking up there for Maverick. The race was going really, really well for him, but that is a significant penalty that he has just picked up. Kenners and Marankello are both into the pits. For Kenners, it's a fresh set of inters. That is a huge call to make from the driver that was in 9th and was about to be promoted up to 8th as well, with Simons' demise in this race. A very, very big decision. Marankello, it makes more sense to roll the dice. He was right down towards the bottom end of the order. But Kenners has taken a big risk.
Yeah, and I wonder how long the safety car's coming out. All of the drivers would have checked with their race engineer, Mr. Jeff, and asked, when is the rain going to get worse? And if Jeff said, in more than 5 minutes, then they'd stay on the inters. If it's less than 5 minutes, put on the wets, because even if when the safety car gets underway, it's not, wet enough for those wets, if you can keep them nice and tidy for a lap, then they will come into their own. That being said, though, we saw Iceman trying to keep those wets under control, and Iceman's a driver of high quality, but even he had a very, very tough time with them.
Seeing in the chat, the Mavericks game asked him to get a delta of minus 45 seconds to where he was, so I think that's a bit unfortunate for the AlphaTauri driver. Very understandable that he picked up a penalty for that one. That is rather an impossible request. As that's Dougie Falcons heading into the pits then from second. Peso follows him in. Valu has not come into the pits. Has he missed a trick here? This wasn't suiting him anyway.
This is terrible for Iceman because he's behind Valu. He's not going to be able to unlap himself. He'll be a lap down on the entire field.
Oh no, that is not where he needs to be for sure. A lap down for our reigning champion. A bit of a fall from grace here in Singapore for the Macedonian, but there's still a race to go. It could be another safety car. Things could still work out his way. We'll have to wait and see. But it's looking very, very unlikely at this stage. Dougie Falcons having come into the pits and come back out in second on fresh inters. That's Peso, Maverick, Max, Rafa Martins. They're all pretty close on the exit of the pits. Never mind, Rafa Martins is into the pits, along with Cheggers as well, both going for fresh intermediates, you'd have to imagine. But Dougie managing to get back out in second on a fresh set of inters is fantastic news for him. He can really look to take it to Valu. And of course, that penalty hanging over Valu's head is going to make a big difference towards the end as well.
Jacob, you remember where I said that the only thing that could save Iceman's race
Sepp.
was the safety car?
Sorry, Sepp. Something needs to save Sepp. He's out of this race. He's in the pits. Has he just retired it? That is weird.
Bizarre. Maybe he's having some lag issues and just decided to pull the plug to prevent it affecting anyone else on circuit.
Either way, sorry, you were saying about the safety car.
So I was saying, remember how I said the only thing that could save Iceman's race was a safety car?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It turns out that safety car has literally taken his race and jumped on it a few times before throwing it into the trash and burning it.
Yeah, that is, I think, exactly what has happened there. So, yeah, unfortunate for Sepp, but he had to leave. So, sad to see him having to go there. But nevertheless, the race wasn't exactly going his way anyway, but going into the pits and retiring the right way to do it if you do have to go for whatever reason. And he will not be making it to the checkered flag here, as I believe he didn't manage to do in Monza either.
I just got word from Sam that apparently he had to go. He had an emergency of some sort. So whatever it is, hopefully Sepp and everything is all right for him. And hopefully we get to see him racing next week.
Indeed. Very much like to see him back. He showed his stuff here as well in the qualifying for this race. Really up towards the very top of the order. His raw pace is looking very, very good. So hopefully we will see him again. Iceman's into the pits again, by the way. I guess he's just looking to build the biggest sort of stack at the end of his name. Oh no, he's actually just retiring. After getting lapped, he has decided that that is enough. And to be honest, who can blame him with the way that's definitely not gone in his favor? Don't know what's happening there with Peso. Maverick, by the way, just came into the pits as well. He's going to lose out to Max. So Max has gained a few positions on Rafa Martin's on Maverick as well.
Oh no.
Oh
I've
no.
seen this glitch.
Oh no. That is... Oh dear. Maverick was not happy. He's stuck in the pits. Everything happens to Maverick, I swear to God.
It wasn't
Finally, the
Maverick,
Haas
it was
gets
the
out of the
Haas.
way.
Yeah.
Oh.
Rafa Martin's having some issues, so...
It's
Rafa
Iceman.
Martin
That was
did
Iceman's
actually...
retired.
Oh, was it
pit car.
Iceman?
Yeah.
Oh, Maverick and Iceman, these two battled throughout Season 1, and, well, clearly Iceman's retirement, while not intentional to cause that issue, has, well, really wrecked Maverick's race. He's down to 9th when he would have been, I think, in P6 behind the other Haas of Rafa Martin's.
I think he might have even been ahead of Rafa Martins when he came out of the pits. Definitely would have lost out to Max, who's sitting up in 4th right now. If those 6-lap old Inters can hold on, he is sitting pretty, just as he was in Monza. Not to jinx it or anything, of course. A2 UK is penultimate position right now because his teammate AJ has come into the pits again for a set of full wet tyres. So he is rolling the dice, as Iceman tried to do before getting stuck a lap down.
Yeah, and to be honest, for Iceman, I think, as much as I hate to say it, I fully understand why he's retired. There's no way for him to do anything. Even if there's another safety car, he's still a lap down and won't be able to do anything. And it's just one of those unfortunate situations where the game doesn't allow you to unlap yourself under the safety car. And that's the situation we find ourselves in. I wonder if the safety car's coming in this lap. It's been out for ages, and with people diving on into the pits and all sorts of things happening, it does mean that the safety car has to stay out and wait for the entire field to bunch itself together. And I think as a result, the safety car stayed out for 1, maybe 2 laps longer than it would have done otherwise.
It's going to make it very, very interesting because this might elongate the dry portion of the race towards the end as well, as the cars are going very, very slowly behind the safety car. Are they into the pits for... There's got to be full wets then. That is Dougie Falcons into the pits. That is Max heading into the pits as well. Surely that can only be full wets. He was on fresh inters sitting in 2nd. You can see, look at the track there in the pit lane. The rain is really, really coming down. Maybe it is time for full wets now, and Dougie Falcons is the first to pull the trigger along with Max. Max didn't pit onto a 2nd set of inters, so if all the others do have to come in for wets, he might well benefit in a major way here.
Yeah, and the thing that I want to bring up is because the safety car is being left out for so long, we know the track's going to dry up and go back to intermediate conditions. If more people come into the pits for the full wet, they might elongate the safety car so long that it goes back to intermediate tires while they're on the full wet. So the guys putting on wets, while it might be a good strategy, they might also be simultaneously shooting themselves in the foot. It's a very, very bizarre situation right now, Jacob.
Now, when I said at the top of the show that I love a good permutation, this isn't exactly what I was thinking of, but there is a lot going on in this race right now, and it is very, very hard to keep track of exactly where everyone is. That's Kenners who's just come into the pits. Racebug has just come into the pits and strapped on a set of inters. Maverick has just driven past Walter. I mean, not Walter, Chegwin on track. Not sure how that's happened. Walter himself has found himself up in 5th now, having not pitted from his initial set of inters. Same for JB up in 4th as well, replacing his teammate Max in that 4th position. A lot of penalties throughout the field as well. Peso still sitting in 2nd, Rafa Martins in 3rd. They are both in a positive position right now. It's a drive-through, of course, that Maverick has, of course, for speeding under the safety car earlier on. So, I mean...
We saw this for Recreate in a Division 1 race last week at Monza, where the safety car stayed out for so long that he couldn't serve his drive-through within 3 laps. And even though the safety car's coming in this lap, I don't know if he's going to be allowed to serve that drive-through. Maverick might get disqualified here.
I think as long as he follows the safety car into the pits, there's no way... Because he won't pass the start-finish line until he's already serving the drive-through. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be okay. He's going to be okay in that regard. I don't think he's going to be okay... broadly speaking, mentally or in the race, because he'll be very, very unhappy with everything that has gone on. I mentioned before how everything just seems to happen to him, and sometimes he's able to pull out good results in spite of it. It's going to have to be another heroic performance from Maverick here if he's going to get anything out of this race at this point.
Yep, and Maverick, he's stuck behind Walter, who's having some kind of issue. And I don't know what's going on here. Maverick wants to get past, but Walter's just running really slowly. I know the two of them, they're in voice call together right now.
Walter? Was Maverick behind him? What's happened there? Maverick's still going. Rafa Martins is into the lead. Rafa Martins has taken P1. I'm sorry. Oh, can you explain that one to me? The Haas driver's cutting turn 2, but he's into the lead of the race. There's yellows in sector 3.
Everyone can't handle it in the intermediate tires right now, Jacob.
I don't believe, but he was behind Peso. Rafa Martins has taken both of them down the main straight there. Value's down into second, Peso down into third. JB is hanging around there as well. And then 5.8 seconds to Dougie Falcons, who is now in 5th. He is struggling on those wet tires, I believe. I don't think he was stuck behind Walter, but I'm not 100% certain about that. Maybe he was. In fact, I think he probably was actually, as he is catching up to the rest of those guys at a rate of knots now. It is full wet conditions. That much is for sure. You can see the gap coming down between Dougie Falcons and JB right now. And Value can't go as fast as he would like either, I'm sure, because he's stuck behind Rafa Martins. And you can tell he's stuck because he's staying within that range despite the delta in tires. But I don't know what happened with Rafa there, but that is just incredible. So hats off to him for that safety car restart.
Take a look at Max. Max is about to take P6, and he's an effective P2 in the race. He's the second highest driver on the wet tires around the outside of the right-hander into the Anderson Bridge. Max, stay out of the wall, please, and he pulls off the move.
Nicely done there, of course. Big differential in the tyres. The wets compared to the inters, allowing him to pull off a move in a place we would not usually expect. And look at Dougie Falcons. He's gained 5 seconds on these guys over the course of this lap. This is going to be a breeze past the rest of these, as long as he just has to make sure he navigates it safely. That is JB getting comfortably out of the way, allowing Dougie Falcons through. The sensible thing to do from the Portuguese newcomer to Premier X. This will be another one, surely. No, Peso is not so willing, as he doesn't let Dougie through, and he pays the price for it as he runs wide and into the wall. He's picked up front wing damage.
He has to pit this lap for full wets, trying to make these inters go until it dries up for inters again is no longer an opportunity, and the intermediate tires, runners, they're staying out, they're sticking to their guns. I don't know when the track is meant to dry up, but right now, Dougie Falcons is going nearly 10 seconds a lap quicker than anyone else on circuit.
He's having to get through this traffic, but yeah, if he'd had that final sectoral to himself, I'm sure he would have been comfortably faster. Peso's into the pits, Maverick's into the pits, probably to serve his drive-through penalty. Peso, of course, having picked up that front wing damage, it makes sense. AJ making progress up the order. He's up into 6th on his set of extreme wets. Meanwhile, Dougie Falcons retakes the race lead away from Rafa Martins this time, who I'm sure is not the driver he was expecting to get past to reclaim P1. Value pretty close behind as well, but actually falling further away now as well. All the wet tyre runners are coming up through the field. Kenners, who took the risk to go onto those wet tyres, will be getting past Marankello in just a moment's time, and then he'll be looking to catch up to the rear end of AJ, who was struggling towards the beginning of this race on the inters at least. We'll see whether he has the pace on the full wets or not, but nevertheless, he is up in 6th for now. Around the outside goes Kenners. They make contact there. Marankello not willing to just wave him past, but he's not going to have an option in the matter at the end as Kenners makes his way past into 9.
I tell you what, this might be a case of Canada 2011 for Peso. He's got damage, he's been forced to pit onto the wet tyres, and I think it might actually be the better call than staying out on the inters. He's going to gain all of the time he lost on that previous lap, and I think even if the likes of JB and Max, or pardon me, JB pits on this lap for full wets, he might come out behind Peso, or it will be nip and tuck. If he stays out, well, it's going to be a very, very intriguing situation we find ourselves in come the final 5 laps of this race.
Dougie Falcons is leading this race by 7.3 seconds right now. Max has just come up to the rear end of these guys, but he's not going to be anywhere near close enough to Dougie to think about challenging the British driver towards the end of this race. Is this going to be the first win in Premier X for Dougie Falcons? It's certainly looking pretty likely right now. He's had several podiums thus far this season, but this will be his first win in the series, and if he can hold on to it right now, but he's definitely in a great position. That is JB getting past Value, because Value's heading into the pit lane there. He's had enough of those inters. He's throwing in the towel, and he'll need a towel when he gets into the pit lane to clean off that visor before going on to those blue-walled full wet tyres. Meanwhile, that's Max getting past AJ, who is struggling once again. Max was considerably... Oh, no, sorry, that's AJ having a go at Max, sorry.
Yeah, Max defending from AJ. AJ trying to find a move down the inside. And AJ knows this could be second place for him. His first podium of the season. He needs to try to use the Renault of JB up ahead to create an opportunity to overtake. And he's going to slot in right behind the Renault now through the Raffles Boulevard.
Look at this, though. Thinking about the move was AJ there, but JB just has to let them
got
go
the run.
through in the end. Oh, wow. Very, very close to making contact. And he backs out of it there into turn 8 rather wisely. That is Kenners, of course. With all this battling, Kenners is getting much closer to these guys as well.
Ahead of Value as well. See, I called it. He got the Jensen Button Canada 2011 strat to work.
I mean, it's worked on getting past Valu, but he's 14.5 seconds behind Chegwin, who is the next lowest driver, or the driver ahead of him on that wet tire. Further back, that was Kenners sending an absolute dive bomb up the inside of JB there, but it looks like he's managed to make it work, considering the tire differential. That's not too surprising. Max struggling there through turn 13, but he gets a good run on the exit. Might have compromised AJ's run, actually, as he's a little bit closer to Kenners than he would like, but I don't think Kenners will make the move there into 14. That would have been very, very optimistic. And he sticks in behind. Walter, what are you doing, mate? He's just pitted for a fresh set of inters.
I mean, maybe he just couldn't scroll through his tire thing in time. Maybe it glitched out and put him on inters instead of full wets, but yeah, Walter's race has gone horribly, horribly wrong. Now, Peso, he's got Value half a second behind. He's about 15 seconds behind A2 UK in this group of cars, so
there's a
give it 1.5 laps.
It's JB. Sorry, I think JB's in the wall. I'm pretty sure. I think he went down the escape road there into turn 18 before that bridge, and he's lost a lot of time. I thought he was in the wall, but it was not the case. Marinkello has been able to capitalize and get past A2 UK all over his case, as well as Chegwin, who desperately needs to clear these guys, because every lap he spends behind these guys, the guys ahead on the same strategy, on the same tires as Chegwin, are getting further and further away.
Yeah, but he just can't seem to find a way through just yet. And is the rain starting to ease up, Jacob? It doesn't look like it. It's still pouring. And I'm just keeping an eye on the gap from Peso to Chegwin. 12.4 seconds, not closing in by as much as Dougie Falcons is pulling away.
AJ up the inside there into turn 7. They bang wheels in a major way. Max tried to turn in on him there, and they'll have to stick in behind. AJ making the move stick, and Ken is around the outside. He goes of turn 8, and he just about pulls it off. It's such a tricky traction zone on the exit, and Max found that out to his cost there as he falls back down into 5th.
And this might be the situation where Max is on a dry setup and the likes of Kenners and AJ are on wet setups. That's why they might have been struggling in that first stint. But now that the rain's coming down, it's all starting to fall their way. Chegwin still trying to find a way through on JB's 2/10 behind and maybe into the Anderson Bridge. He can have a go round the outside. He'll try. He gets the cutback, gets the switchback, and he gets the move done.
A switchback onto the Anderson Bridge. Not something you see every day, but these are very, very unique conditions in this race right now, and he makes it work. He needed to make that move happen. Now he needs to get on to getting past Marinkello as quickly as possible, because of course it is going to get back to intermediate tire conditions at some point. Chegwin needs to make hay while the sun is still shining for him. You can't really stay out on extreme wets when there's a significant period of intermediate conditions, because they will just start to boil. You'll be understeering wildly around the whole track, losing time hand over fist, and you know, Chegwin needs to get past so that he can build a safe gap to the rest of them. JB's had another incident in the same part of the lap again. Valu has picked up another 3-second time penalty.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, Valu is looking in a really, really difficult situation. Even if he somehow magically gets himself back into the lead from a safety car, or who knows what.
Max is gone round in the final corner. He's going to be heading into the pit lane. He's picked up front wing damage, and it all goes wrong again for Max, the German in the Renault. In Monza, it looked like it was his race. He was going to get 4th maybe, and it was going to be a huge points haul for Renault, the team in last in the standing.
JB as well. So we've got some battles going on because AJ's closed up to Rafa, and Peso and Valu have closed up to JB. And I think we're going to be seeing moves in a short amount of time. Here comes Peso around the outside, and he gets the job done just like that.
Easy as you like, and I'm sure Valu will find it just as simple. Getting past the Renault driver up ahead. Really fascinating to see that Max has gone for inters in his pit stop. We can't be that far away from the changeover point back in the other direction, but of course a lot of the people who stayed out on inters, their inters are rather worn now as well. They've been on a fair few laps, so they might be losing time as a result of that as well. Rafa Martins is still holding on to second on intermediate tyres, by the way, so he is still sitting pretty for a very, very good debut race here in Premier X.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of wets being faster than inters, but also some drivers being on those wet setups, some drivers being on those dry setups as well, and it's all kind of feeding into each other in a weird way. Valu's got past JB quickly. We expected that of him, but Peso is closing up to all of these guys ahead, and he's very shortly going to be on the back of this group that goes all the way up to second place. And for Peso and Valu, they need that rain to stay chucking it down for as long as possible, but it looks to be that rain is starting to ease up. Keep an eye on the gap between Dougie Falcons and Rafa Martins to get an indicator of when we are moving back into that crossover period.
I think we're getting closer and closer to it right now. Dougie is still building that gap pretty comfortably at the very front, but maybe not quite so much as he was a few laps ago. As I said that, he just pulled about 4/10 in about 2 corners, so maybe it is still extreme wet conditions for now. Kenners doesn't think so. He's into the pits again. He's rolling the dice. Kenners, I said it before, when he was in a solid position, that was 9th at the time. I was surprised he came into the pits and went for the wets. It worked out for him. Now he's doing the same thing from 4th to 6th to even higher on this gamble. Cheggers coming into the pits. Valu coming into the pits as well. After only a couple of laps on that wet set of tyres before going straight back onto the inters, I'm not sure the decision to pit has paid off for him.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, Valu initially would have been gaining about 10 seconds, and Valu's lost time. Oh, wait, never mind. It's just a bit of a glitch for us now. Rafa Martins, 27.1 seconds behind Dougie, and that gap is not really pulling. And Dougie Falcons, we'd expect him to be that little bit quicker than Rafa. So I think Peso might have picked the perfect lap to switch over. Oh, pardon me, not Peso. Valu might have picked the perfect lap to switch compounds.
But if he hadn't pitted for extreme wets in the first place, yes, he would be 27, 28 seconds behind Dougie Falcons. But he might still be in 3rd, or at the very worst, 4th right now. And that wouldn't be so bad. And he'd still be on the inters. He'd be on the right tyre for this time. Maybe the guys who were staying on their old inters will still have to pit again for another fresh set, which could make it permutate even further, depending on just how much more rain is going to come down before the track starts to dry up. The drops are still coming. The rain is still getting onto the circuit. The circuit will not be getting much drier than this for the time being. Maverick's just headed into the pits onto another set of inters. He's back out in last right now after his various mishaps and misfortunes over the course of this race. It's been a disaster for him, and my heart really goes out to him. He's about to get lapped, in fact, by our race leader, Dougie Falcons, although he probably won't actually, considering that Dougie is now on those wet tyres, which are starting to fall away. Rafa is closing the gap now to Dougie.
Yeah, and Peso's lost about half a second to A2 UK as well since Valu dived on into the pit. So the wet's definitely slow. It is time to jump onto the intermediate tyres. The only way that could change is if it's drying up so quickly that it'll be dries in a few laps time. But I don't think that's going to be the case here under the night sky in Singapore, as we see Peso diving on into the pits, as I think is a correct call for the Czech driver.
Yeah, no, it's just that it becomes so undrivable when you start to really heat up those wet tires above their working range. You think you can do it. You think, oh, I'll just drive slowly. I'll take it as carefully as possible. You cannot physically take it carefully enough to keep those tires in a decent working range when it really gets to these sort of intermediate conditions. It will take a couple of laps to really get bad, but once it gets bad, you will know. So Dougie Falcons and AJ are brave to stay out on their tires. Dougie, just pit. He doesn't have anything to lose if he pits. He'll come out ahead of Rafa Martins, and he will just completely remove any risk of this going wrong for him. But if he tries to stay out on the wets, he might find himself losing upwards of 5 seconds a lap to Rafa Martins behind in a couple of laps' time.
So I think a pit stop here in the wet conditions is about 28 seconds. So I don't know why Dougie hasn't pitted straight away. If he did, maybe he thought he'd come out behind Rafa Martins. Maybe he's waiting for Rafa to pit so that when he pits onto the inters, it's entirely clear behind him. But Rafa Martins, so he pitted on lap 12 for those intermediate tires, a couple of laps behind the safety car. Rafa Martins could theoretically take those intermediates to the end, but depending on his setup, those intermediates, well, regardless of setup, his intermediates, his rear intermediates especially, will be at about 80% tire wear, maybe 90. And we saw yesterday in Division 1 a lot of punctures as drivers try to stretch their intermediate tires. So hopefully for Rafa Martins, he doesn't get a puncture. Let's see how he tries to play the strategy.
There's a bit of a hold there. Usually there's a sort of bug which indicates a little bit of a hold, but that actually seemed real for Dougie Falcons as he comes out comfortably behind Rafa Martins. Marankello is staying out there. He's up into third. He started in last on the grid. 18th position for him.
Marankello's jumped ahead.
Second. Wow, that is... things have gone his way at a certain point in this race. I said at one point the race was dead in the water for the McLarens. Certainly has proved to be that way for Walter, but not for Marankello. And up in a second, he goes ahead of our erstwhile race leader and race dominator in the former Dougie Falcons. AJ came into the pits as well. He's coming back out behind Kenners in now 7th position. So Kenners' decision to go onto the Inters when he did, I think, has paid dividends for him. He will still have to catch up to JB and A2 UK. He has much fresher Inters. He needs the rain to last as long as it possibly can at this stage to make sure that A2 and JB in particular will need to pit before the end again.
Or maybe even for Kenneth, you don't want the rain to last that long, because if it starts drying up, the worn Inters of everyone else will start burning up even quicker. But it won't. There might not be enough laps there to warrant a pit over to the dry tires. So we'll have to see whether this rain does clear up anymore. We have a 10 laps remaining, or 10 and a half laps remaining. But here at Singapore, with almost a 2-minute lap time in the wet conditions, those 10 laps will take quite a while to pass.
Here's Dougie Falcons really sticking with the back end of Marankello now, but the Italian will not be keen to let the Ferrari pass, no matter how much of a tifoso he may or may not be. But I don't think he's going to have too much of a say in the matter once we come to the next major overtaking opportunity, because you can see that Dougie is crawling all over the rear end of that McLaren right now. He is desperate to get past because he knows that Rafa Martins is more like 7 seconds up the road from him now. And he could have been so much closer if he pitted 1 lap before the lap he actually came into the pits. Dougie Falcons would be comfortably second and closing down Rafa Martins right now. Further down the order, that's Valu, who just got past Walters Mank, who is Chegwin, for 9th position. Valu taking a position in 9th. Not something you see every day.
Yeah, not something you see every day at all. And, well, Pes is going to find it hard to get past Chegwin because they're on relatively similar age tires, just 1 lap between the two. And here comes Dougie Falcons on Marankello.
There you go. Easy as you like there for the Ferrari driver. 10 lap difference, or maybe 11 lap difference rather, in the state of their intermediate tires. So Dougie will not... he'll be annoyed that he spent as long behind Marankello as he did, to be honest, because the move was quite easy in the end. And now 6.2 seconds, 6.1 seconds behind Rafa Martins. It is evaporating that gap right now.
Yeah, Valu's also on the back of Race Buggy's found a way through as well. So Valu's wasting absolutely no time in working his way up the order. 5 seconds to AJ, and then it's another 2.5 seconds to Kenneth. And then you've got, this group of cars on those old and worn intermediate tires. If Valu has a perfect race, maybe he can still squeeze out a podium. But right now for Valu, it's damage limitation, and it's making sure he can get as many points as he can in what has been, well, a horrendous race strategically for him.
Yeah, it has not been the best race of his career, that much is for sure. His driving has been fine. I mean, he's picked up 2 3-second time penalties, so maybe it's not been quite so good as usual. But nevertheless, he'll be relatively happy. That's Racebug with Chegwin all over his rear end at the moment. Racebug has quietly managed to recover a level of decency in this race, shall we say, up into 9th at the moment, which would be a good result for the Portuguese Williams driver. There's yellows out on circuit. Is Maverick and Walter, I think, battling. That's Maverick having got past Walter. Maybe Walter made a mistake. Ken has also just got past JB. Up into 5th goes the Red Bull there. As JB and AJ as well, trying to follow Kenners through, and he does so around the outside of turn 20. Nice move there from AJ. Those 15-lap-old Inters on JB's car really making him struggle now.
I tell you what, Kenners is very likely to finish on the podium. JB's pitted. Those 15-lap-old Inters must be horrible right now. We're talking about well over 50% tyre wear, and JB dives on into the pits. He needs to absolutely make sure he nails his outlap, because on that outlap, if someone pits on a lap after you can gain maybe about 2-3 seconds if you really hammer down a lap. JB's put on the slicks. is surely not dry enough. I'm
No.
still seeing spray coming up. JB has made a mistake here, surely. There isn't much spray. JB might have just pulled an absolute blinder of a strat, or maybe he's completely thrown it down the drain, and I think it's the latter.
I think it's the latter as well. The rain is still coming down a little bit here in Singapore. And if the rain is coming down, chances are those slick tyres are not the tyres to be on. Apparently he had a rear right puncture. So that's why he had to go into the pits, and that's why he was so slow. I thought I saw something a little bit amiss on his car. Walter, by the way, has retired from this race halfway down the straight between turns 13 and 14. Not sure if he picked up terminal damage there or if he just decided to throw it in. He was running in last. With Maverick having got past him. And Maverick will be thinking about maybe having an opportunity to get past JB, who he will now see is ahead on those soft tyres. Meanwhile, up at the very front, Dougie Falcons, a quarter of a second between himself and Rafa Martins. Dougie has closed down the gap efficiently here, with plenty of laps left to go to still get past the Portuguese driver and reclaim the top spot for the third time in this race. And he does so.
Yeah, it does it just like that. You could see how much more front-end grip Dougie had while Rafa was running wide. Dougie able to carry more speed and hold it tighter through turns at 22, 23, and now he's ahead, and it is his race for the taking. All he needs to do is get himself enough of a gap so that if it doesn't dry over, he can afford to, be that one lap later into the pits than Rafa Martins and not get undercut or overcut.
Indeed, and with the tyre differential, with the pace with which Dougie caught up to Rafa Martins, I'm sure he will be able to build that sort of gap that he needs. Further down, that's Peso, having got past Chegwin, because Chegwin is headed into the pits. Is he going for softs right now? The rain has stopped, maybe, but there's still spray on the circuit. I don't think it's quite yet. I think it's one more lap, Chegwin. But he's coming into the pits regardless, and it is going to be those soft tyres. No front wing change. This is a pure strategical decision from the Racing Point, and we'll see whether it pays off. I will be very surprised. I think one more lap at the very least.
Look at the gap between Maverick and JB is still dropping like a stone through water. Maybe that could somewhat be because JB's tires are really cold and he hasn't been able to get the temperature up after pitting one lap too early. But I think Chegwin will be really struggling. You can see the spray still coming off those intermediate tires, and when there's spray, it's definitely not time for slicks.
Yeah, anytime there's spray, you cannot run those slick tires and hope to go at any sort of relevant speed, really, in this race. Madden Kello, by the way, has A2 UK all over the back of him, and then there's another Alpha trying to get past another driver in the form of AJ. Stuck behind Kenners right now. Kenners has 6 seconds of time penalties. AJ has 0, so he will stand to gain this position away from the Red Bull driver, but he also has Valu on his rear end, which is a threatening prospect at the best of times, but when Valu has been quite so disadvantaged as he has been in this race, he's probably going to be a little bit more angry and a little bit more prone to making some bold decisions, as this is going to be a bold one around the outside of 17. There he tries to make the move, cannot do so, backs out of it, and in fact that's front wing damage for AJ, clonking the wall there.
Rafa Marichello and A2
change that.
They're into the pits, and it's going to be soft tires going on for all of them. Is this one lap too early, or is it the perfect lap? Dougie Falcons has stayed out for at least one lap more.
Yeah, Dougie will be feeling perfectly comfortable in that. There is still spray. The DRS has not been re-enabled. All of the drivers think it's time, though, for those softs. I think it's going to be about halfway around this lap when it gets to the point where the softs are going to go. So Dougie can still just push as he likes, and there is the DRS enabled. So the softs are just about coming into play right now. Dougie will still be able to set a relatively okay lap time on these inters. I think he'll come out ahead of Rafa Martins, but if Rafa can really nail this out lap, he could have a chance of regaining the race lead again.
I think Rafa will pull it off. He's only 29.6 behind, and I think he's going to gain about 3 seconds on this lap. Let's see if it does drop to under 27 seconds, because if it does, I think Rafa Martins might just pull this one off.
Let's see where Chegwin comes out. He's actually not going to gain too much from having pitted when he did. I think it was still a lap too early for him. He's still behind AJ, Peso, and Racebug, who's gained yet more positions. JB picking up a 3-second time penalty there again. For multiple warnings, running down in 12th. Maverick is going to go away from the inters as well at the very back of the field. And Rafa is closing down Dougie. It's within 28 seconds right now. So Dougie is going to be very, very nervous when he comes into the pits at the end of this lap. He's almost there, though. Only the final corner before getting into that pit lane.
Yep. And A2 gonna have a look with DRS down the inside. That's a late move, A2. You can get your front wing chopped off so easily. But Marinkello leaves a bit of room. Dougie Falcons into the pits as Peso has found a way past Racebug. So Peso now up to P7, 8.5 seconds behind Valu. And let's see if he can kind of close with Valu up at 2 Kenners.
Let's see, where's it going to be? Dougie Falcons on the exit of the pit lane here with Rafa Martins.
And Rafa's done it. He's done it by almost 2 seconds as A2 goes down the inside of Marinkello.
Nicely done. So A2 getting past Marinkello finally, does have penalties to contend with, so he needs to now gap the McLaren driver. Both of them trying to get a podium here. It would be A2's second of the season, of course. After a great one, was it in Baku where he got his great result? I cannot remember now at the moment. Valu making the move on Kenners. That is purely for position. They're both on 6 seconds worth of time penalties there. Rafa Martins is ahead of Dougie, but of course he does have that penalty as well. And Dougie will almost certainly have the pace to get past.
Yeah, Rafa Martins just picked up that time penalty. I'm not sure where exactly he did it, but that is going to be a huge blow for him. He just had to defend from Dougie. To be fair, I think Dougie will be able to overtake him anyway, but I'm sure he would have wanted to, well, to be honest, A2 UK might close up, so that 3-second time penalty could be a massive blow, not just for the race win, but for P2 as well, with 4.5 laps remaining.
I think Rafa's probably nailed on for second here, unless it comes to blows with Dougie Falcons behind, and it might well do. There's going to be some desperation involved in some of these moves, I'm sure. Dougie knows that he doesn't have to risk it. I'm sure he'll be aware that Rafa Martins has that penalty now, and that is Chegwin picking up another time penalty of his own as well, down in 10th, ahead of Max right now by 7.5 seconds, but if he picks up too many more penalties, that will be at risk with that gap, even though it seems pretty comfortable on circuit. Valu is up in clean air in 5th as well, but with 15 seconds up to Marinkello and 6 seconds of penalties on top of that, I don't think he is going to be able to catch up and take anything better than 5th position in this race. But nevertheless, that's Kenners! Kenners is out! He's lost it on the bridge!
Is that a safety car? Yes, it is! Late drama. So Rafa Martins has a time penalty. Valu has 6 seconds of time penalties. Peso has none. And, well, all of a sudden, A2 UK might be in for P3, maybe P2, and Valu's into the pits for fresh softs. He's got a big gap, so he'll come out behind Peso, but I think that will be it. Did he have wing damage?
No, he picked up a 5-second penalty when he came into the pits, though, I can tell you that. So another 5 seconds to add. That's 11 seconds now for Valu for speeding in the pit lane. And down into 9th he goes. I'm not even sure why he decided to come into the pits at all, to be honest. But that is not
a little bit worn from, really pushing to try to get past everyone. He's come down now in 10th. He would have been in a P5, so I think that's a terrible decision. He must have had some front wing damage from somewhere.
He didn't change
it, though. That is bizarre.
Yeah, the front wing did not change, and he's picked up the 5-second penalty, so that makes it definitely not worth it. Maybe he's just looking to give some company to Maverick down at the very bottom of the field. It's Renault AlphaTauri at the very back. And that is the team in last in the championship and the team in first in the championship. So a bit of a topsy-turvy race here today. That is a very good indicator of that fact. Safety car coming out, of course, for Kenners as well.
Max has had an incident. He's spun on the exit of turn 4, I think. Or
that's the safety car. Sorry,
that's safety car. My bad.
Yeah.
I saw a yellow thing stopped. I thought, Renault, oh no. Okay, so let's break this down. Rafa Martins is leading the race from Dougie Falcons. But Dougie Falcons, we expect, has the pace, and it doesn't matter. He's got 3 seconds less of time penalties. A2 UK has a huge amount of time penalties. So right now, technically, it's Dougie Falcons leading from Marinkello, Peso, and AJ.
Marinkello.
Oh, never mind. Marinkello's into the pit. So Marinkello also deciding that he wants to put on some fresh soft tires to go to the end. So I don't know what the tire wear is for everyone, but it must be pretty high. Either way, it's going to be a 3-lap sprint to the end.
Look at the gap that Marinkello has down to Peso. He's got a free pit stop here. Or he would have done if he didn't speed into the pit lane. There's no need to speed into the pit lane. You're under safety car conditions. You're comfortable to Peso. It's not going to make a difference whether you break a little bit too early into the pit lane or not. Oh, Marinkello, that is a shame for him to pick up that 5-second penalty. The same happened to Valu, both of them. It's a critical error to make and a really, really unnecessary one. And speaking of critical errors, I want to have a moment to really commiserate Kenners because that is that was by far and away shaping up to be his best finish of the season. Yes, he had some penalties, but not many more than the rest of the cars around him, apart from maybe Peso and AJ.
And to be fair, we were praising both Kenneth and Max for having great races, and both of them have made mistakes that has really cost them. And I think the safety car will come into the pits at the end of this lap, regardless of whether the whole field has caught up, because I don't think it will leave anything less than a 3-lap sprint to the end. So expect the safety car in at the end of this lap.
All right, and Marankello and Peso better hot-foot it to try and catch up to the rear end of these guys. They have the opportunity, but they are still 10 seconds in arrears right now. And then AJ, Racebug, Chegwin, they're all further behind as well. They all want to be catching up, particularly Peso and AJ, who are sniffing a podium right now. If they can get to the back of these cars, they will be sitting pretty with no penalties. One of them should be able to claim a position on the podium at least, as long as they can get caught up. Here is Peso. He has managed to do so. If the safety car is coming in this lap, I think that is going to be AJ just about getting here in time, but only just.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the safety car is. It should be announcing it now at the very latest. So, safety car out for one more lap, which means we are going to be having a 2-lap sprint to the end. Lap 30, lap 31. Marankello on the freshest soft tires of your top 6.
And that will mean the whole field should be able to bunch up, even with JB and Maverick being so far away at the very back at the moment. And a bit of a blessing for Maverick, who was having a very, very rough race. And finally, the tiniest bit of luck flows his way. But it really is a modicum compared to the sheer bucket loads of bad luck he's had in this one. And throughout the season, to be honest. He is going to be very, very frustrated. There is no doubt about that. And who can blame him? Rafa Martins, though, has an opportunity here. Dougie Falcons still sitting with 0 penalties, but who knows how many warnings he's on. If Rafa can force Dougie to try and go around the outside of him into a corner where you can pick up, you know, maybe turn 7 where you can pick up a warning on the exit there, maybe he can try and coerce Dougie, cajole him into picking up a penalty of his own, and that might give Rafa Martins the chance. I think if you're Rafa, that has got to be your strategy, because you know that Dougie is faster, and you know he has the penalty advantage.
2 things I want to bring up. 1, 2-lap sprint to the end. That means no DRS. It's going to be much more tricky for Dougie Falcons to find a way past Rafa Martin. The other thing I want to bring up is, Jacob, who on earth do we watch on the safety car restart? Do we watch Valu all the way down in P10? Or do we watch Rafa Martins and Dougie Falcons battling for the lead?
I mean, I think we have to watch Dougie and Rafa at the beginning. We missed the very front of the safety car restart last time, and that was a mistake because Rafa pulled off some magic on that one. And it really transformed his race that moment as well. Since then, he's not left the top 2 spots in the race, I think. Or maybe he dropped down 3rd briefly, but nevertheless, he's been in the podium spots ever since that moment. So I think we should stick with Dougie and Rafa. But of course, Dougie should still inherit the win regardless, as long as he keeps his nose clean. We've got to keep an eye on Peso and AJ, though, who have slightly older tyres than Marankello, but have been faster, probably, throughout this whole race. A2 UK as well. Peso in particular will consider himself faster than those 2 guys, and they both have the penalties as well. So all Peso and AJ need to do is stick close enough with them. But they'll be wanting to gain the position on Rafa Martins as well, and they'll want to stay within 3 seconds of the Haas driver.
All I'm going to say, 2-lap sprint to the end. The drivers will be rich. 2 qualifying laps. And Marankello on those fresh soft tyres will have a advantage and a half. Watch out for Dougie Falcons, Marankello, and Valu on this restart.
Driver of the Day poll is in chat, but I suggest that you leave it until this safety car restart, just to get one last chance for these drivers to really prove themselves at the end of this race. It has been absolutely topsy-turvy, but we are racing once again, and what has Valu done? He's hit Max behind the safety car. He's got a 5-second time penalty for a severe collision. Meanwhile, that's Rafa Martins comfortably leading from Dougie Falcons, who could not get the jump on the Haas in first. A2 UK still in 3rd with Marankello crawling all over his gearbox. Peso had a poor restart. He's already outside of a second from Marankello, with AJ closing up behind him as well. Racebug, Chegwin, Valu is battling with Max, trying to get past. He'll be very, very aggrieved after that extra 5-second time penalty he just picked up. And he does get past the German, who now loses out to his teammates as well. Here's Marankello and A2 UK. Marankello making those fresh softs work for him, trying to prove that the decision to come into the pits was absolutely the right one, even though he did pick up a 5-second penalty. But he cannot get past A2 quite yet.
Yeah, he can't, and it seems that that pit stop that he made might just be the thing that curses himself and costs him a P2 because of that 5-second time penalty. How's Valu doing? Valu is up to P9. He can probably get that 5-second time penalty removed as Max has found a way past his Renault teammate of JB.
He can get one of them removed, but he can't get the other one. There's Valu going past Chegwin as well. Further down the order, I think he got him into turn 13 there, which is always a brave move at the end of the Anderson Bridge. Dougie Falcon still close behind Rafa Martins, but he doesn't need to make the move, and I think he knows it. I don't think he's really planning on doing it. Marinkello is looking very, very likely to send a move on A2 UK before the end of this race. He's darting in the mirrors, even into the most unlikely of braking zones there, into 18. You're never going to make a move stick there, at least not without terminal damage for both cars. I don't think Marinkello wants to risk that right now in what would be a very, very good result for the reserve driver here. A2 UK will be desperate to hang on as well. Rafa Martins goes fastest with a 1:37.953. Of course, we barely had any clean running on soft, dry tyres. So Rafa Martins taking the fastest lap for now. But I'm sure some others will want to take that extra bonus point away. Here comes Marinkello, but he can't get the run on the exit of turn 3.
It's all about getting the run here out of turn 5. And does he have it? He's going to tuck in right behind. But I don't think he can this time. Keep an eye on AJ. He's very close to Peso right now. Will he look for a move? I think he is. He's going to go down the inside. And this might cost the pair of them P3 because Peso is right on the cusp of jumping ahead of A2 UK. He's currently about 2 and a bit seconds behind. Never mind, A2 has 6 seconds of time penalties. Too far behind Rafa Martin to take P2. Peso just needs to stay ahead of AJ because this is a battle for position.
Indeed, yeah, lovely defense there from Peso as well, around the outside of turn 7, doing a bit of a wall of death.
Look at Valu in the
playing
background.
with the track limits. There's Valu thinking about the move on Racebug. That'll have given Racebug a bit of a fright into turn 13. He pulled that off last time around on Chegwin. Tried to get the Williams as well, but could not do so. A2 UK still falling away from Rafa and Dougie Falcons. But the main thing is to try and keep Marinkello behind, and if possible, to try and build up 1 second, because there is a 1 second delta in their penalties right now. Marinkello has 5 seconds, whereas A2 UK has 6. So he is still standing to lose out to Marinkello, to Peso, to AJ as well. And he will not want to be falling that far down the order once he comes across the finish line. But it's only going to be a matter of time now as they're heading through the final corner. Rafa Martins will take it on track, but it is Dougie Falcons who takes his first win in Premier X. 10 races into his Premier X career. And there is Peso taking the bottom step of the podium as well. AJ coming through in 4th. Marinkello, great result for him in 5th. Asu falling down to 6th. Racebug holding on to 7th. He'll be happy with that one. Maverick with a decent recovery at the very end there to 8th. Chegwin in 9th. Max in 10th. Valu in 11th. And JB coming across the line in 12th and last of the runners.
What a crazy race. And Jacob, we said it was going to be crazy from the start with the weather changes and the safety car came out right at, well, the worst point if you are a strategist, if you were race engineering for any of the drivers. But Dougie Falcons made all of the right decisions tonight.
Yeah, Dougie, he was definitely the second fastest driver out there. Valu was... all the wrong decisions, whereas Dougie made all of the right ones, as you can see the delta there between Maverick and Max, I think that was, but I'm not sure that was entirely correct, as they are in Parc Fermé right now. But Dougie Falcons taking the win, and deservedly so. He's been knocking on the door of a race victory throughout his time in Premier X, and he takes it here.
And I have a question for you, Jacob. Who gets driver of the day? Is it Dougie Falcons? Is it Rafa Martin? Is it even Marinkello from the back of the grid up to P5? Peso for a P3? This can just go so many ways.
It can go a lot of ways. Marinkello did a great job, but a lot of the places gained, we have to remember, come from luck, come from safety car situations. Dougie Falcons, when he was leading, when he had to make it work on that wet set of tyres, he built out an enormous gap down to Rafa Martins. But Rafa as well, in his debut race, he's qualified 3rd, he's finished 2nd. He took the race lead in an absolutely incredible way, and he almost managed to take it. He crossed the line in 1st as well. I think, for my money, it's Rafa Martins, but it is so close between him and Dougie.
I do somewhat agree with you. The only thing I will disagree with is it's not luck. You have to make the right call. You have to be out there. Yeah. There's a lot of people, I know one driver particularly in Division 2 would call it luck, but it's not. You have to make the right call, and it comes from experience. It comes from driving time. And the likes of Rafa Martins and Dougie Falcons made some great decisions, and Valu would have been up there as well. And you called it, Jacob. You said, why did Valu pit? He should have stuck to his guns, and in the end he didn't, and it all just went tumbling down. Valu outside the top 10.
Yeah, that is not where he would have wanted to be, and it gives a bit of life into a championship challenge from Dougie Falcons. I don't think it'll give enough life into it, though, but what it does mean is that Dougie will be overtaking Calcifer in the standings, unless I'm very, very much mistaken. It's going to be very close between them, at least. No, I'm pretty sure Dougie is going to get past the Estonian and into second, so getting one over on his main rival in the championship there. Valu, of course, he won't be happy about the way the race went, but he's still sitting just fine in the overall standings.
Yeah, and I think on that note, Jacob, we're going to be throwing to a quick break, and when we're back, we'll be having our driver interviews with the top 3. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're here for our top 3 podium interviews. We're joined by Dougie Falcons, Rafa Martins, and Peso. And as always, and as appropriately, we will start with our race winner, Dougie. Dougie, you've ended the tyranny of the Finns and the Estonians, and you've broken Valu's 4 wins in a row. I'll just get straight in. Amazing strategy calls. Just talk us through that race and what are the emotions for you right now?
a bit weird. I feel a bit weird about that race. I didn't expect to win it. Because the strategy calls I thought were was kind of logical, really. Because I thought Valor was going to pit. I thought everyone around me was going to pit. I don't know. I was just like banking on like how the weather was going to play out, and it just about played out. The only thing I did kind of wrong was when I went back to the intermediates. I went a lap too late. Um, and that's when Rafa was able to catch me, and I had to go and do some overtaking. Yeah, it was a bit crazy, really. I was just like, I have nothing to lose. Not really fighting for anything, so why not take the risks?
One question I do want to ask, Rafa Martins, when he got past you, he picked up a 3-second time penalty. My question is, if he didn't have that time penalty, would you have been able to find that extra gear, that extra bit of pace to get past him and take the win on circuit?
Well, I was about to overtake him, but the safety car came out. Because he had a bad exit in turn two, so I was like, okay, I'll size him up for the DRS, and I had enough ERS to try and make the pass stick. So yeah, I probably could have led, but the safety car came out at like the worst time. So I was um I was basically just stuck in P2, and it was just going to be like a non-DRS ERS train. So I couldn't really get past. So I just stuck behind for second place with the penalty. But yeah, he did a really good strategy as well because he stayed out in the inters, and he was the only one to actually make that work. So I'd say fair play to him as well. So yeah, it was just a good race all around.
Jacob, do you have any questions to our race winner?
Yeah, a bit of a casting your mind back one, maybe a slightly an odd question, but in Q2, you suddenly went 7/10 of a second faster than you had done for your first couple of laps in qualifying. Was that mind games that you were pulling off, or did you suddenly remember how to drive the circuit out to your best?
Um, I, I didn't know where I found that time, to be honest, because I was like, well, I had to go again because I didn't know my 33.9 was safe. So I was like, okay, let me just have another go. Because Value did a 34 flat on the medium, so I was like, okay, so that time might not be safe. But then Value is very fast, so so I was just like, okay, let me just go again, just see if I could just improve on it. So I did, and yeah, it went really well. It wasn't really mind games. Really. I was just like, I was trying to like be safe, to be honest. But I guess it was that. You call it what you will, but yeah, that was pretty much it.
Fair enough. So were you aware that you had a 33.2 in you, or what did you think your sort of peak was going into going into the qualifying?
Um, I don't know what in terms of that time. I don't know because track condition changes all the
Yeah.
time. So I didn't know um, if I was going to improve on that. To be honest, I think that 32 I did in Q2 actually was my best lap. So I didn't actually improve on that until Q3. So um, I just took it and just was like, yeah, I'll just try and get the tires to work. And ultimately, it actually was the better strategy to go on qualifying the softs because the rain came out at the perfect time for the softs to pit. So yeah, it kind of all worked out in the end. It was really a gamble from qualifying, really, that set me up for this race. So
Mhm.
and I took it.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your first race win.
Thank you so much.
Um, Moving on to our P2 man, Rafa Martins. First off, the call under the safety car to stay out on the intermediate tires. When you saw Dougie ahead of you on the wets, I mean, what was your thoughts? Did you think, oh, my race might be ruined, or did you know that it all kind of played back in your favor towards the end?
Hi everyone. First of all, I'd like to congrats to Dougie Falcons and Peso to be here with me today. I'd like to thank you, my engineer, and congrats to my friends Racebag and JB that race with me today. Yeah, I know that the Dougie Falcons was faster, much faster than me in the wets than in the inters. I took the gamble to stay out in the inters because Jeff kept me saying the rain would be lighter, and then yeah, I think it worked very well for me, staying out and after that had fresh inters than the others that don't beat, and yeah, it's just like that. And and after that, just keep control of my pace. Unfortunately, took a 3-second time penalty, but yeah, that happens.
I also wanted to ask as well, because coming to the end of that inter stint before you put on the dries, how bad was your tire wear? Because I know from yesterday in the intermediates, a lot of drivers were struggling with tire wears. There were punctures happening as well. So how bad was the tire wear at the end?
Well, it wasn't too bad because I pitted under safety car, the first one. I was already in the inters and then changed to another fresh inters. I was okay, but I see that the Deggy was yeah, in that time the inters doesn't look so bad.
Jacob, any questions from you?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly ask if we can maybe get a run through on the first safety car restart when you went from third to first. We didn't actually, and apologies for this, we didn't actually catch it on camera. So could you run us through exactly, what happened in that moment?
Yeah, sure. I was in P3 because Deggy Falcons pitted, and then the safety car goes into the pits, and then I saw my two opponents. I think the first yet was trying to relaunch the race, but we were so close off the finish line that I just go for it, and the green flag. I'm almost 100% sure that was down, and I just sent it.
Well,
But I can
congratulations. That was very,
I
very
have
impressive.
I have to take a look.
Mhm.
Well, congratulations on the P2, Rafa. Also, I think you've got a very angry Gaunt probably messaging you about not shouting her name out on stream. So I'll let you deal with that. Moving on to our third place man, Peso. Well, a win in Division 1 yesterday and now P3 tonight. Do you think in hindsight you could have maybe got that P2 spot?
Um, Actually, I don't know. I'm really happy to stand on this podium because I fucked up my strategy as much as Walu, and like Doogie had 600 IQ, I think. Yeah, but I still managed to get the podium, and I'm just so happy to be here. And yeah, that's really it.
I want to ask twice because first time when you were on the mediums and Dougie was on the softs, you were closing him, and then he fitted right as it was time to move over to the inters. And then again, when he went onto those wets behind the safety car, he was on the inters, you were on the inters, he dived into the pits. In both of those situations, what were you kind of thinking? Because the first one must have been, darn, if there was only one lap, you could have maybe taken him. And in the other scenario, did you think, okay, maybe I follow Dougie into the pits here?
Yeah, my plan was just to stay with Ducky and not have a penalty, which worked. But obviously, I didn't pit for the wets, which was really bad decision for me. And uh, again, he's smart, and I don't have experience, so I really didn't know if I have to pit if I don't or don't.
Jacob, I'll throw any other questions to you.
No, I think that's everything. I don't think I had anything further to ask necessarily. So yeah.
Well, congrats, Peso, on the P3, and I look forward to kicking your butt next week in Russia.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. From myself and Jacob, that's about everything. Taking a look at driver of the days, it was close between Dougie Falcons, Peso, and Rafa. Dougie and Peso both with 6 votes. Rafa Martins with 5. So
Oh, make
I
that
think
6. He's
is
just
it
got
is
up
it
to
6?
6.
Did
Yeah,
it just go up to 6?
it
Okay,
just
they're
ticked
all
up to
tied.
6.
Perfect. Just what
So
we
I
need
think
to
the
see.
only fair thing to do is to give it to Chegwin on the 1 vote.
Yes, and it was probably him himself who did it as well. Wait,
Ooh.
apparently our production decides. I think that is a very fair ruling. That was definitely a rule that exists.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
go
Our
go
producer
go on
is
production.
about to vote.
Yes, I'm. Oh, Rafa gets it. Okay, Well, good
There
job,
you
Rafa
go.
Martins, on getting the official driver of the day result, courtesy of our producer, Reed HD. But yeah, Jacob, any final words before I wrap things up?
I would love to say a few more final words, but honestly, I think my voice would disappear and I need it for tomorrow morning. So I'm going to let you wrap it up now.
All right. Well, from myself and Jacob, thank you guys, everyone, so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, do make sure to hit a follow on Twitch and make sure to follow on YouTube and Twitter as well at Formula X Racing on Twitter, and YouTube is under Formula X Racing to stay up to date with all the content that we do release. And we do release content. I've been Yousuf Milky Cereal, bin-Suhayl. You can catch me on Twitter at Milky Cereal 73. And of course, I've been joined by the wonderful Jacob Aladar Hancox, and you can catch him at, I believe, is at Jacob Hancox Caster.
Is that J Hancock's caster? Unfortunately, not enough character limit for Jacob Hancock's cast.
I will get there in the end. But again, guys, thank you very much for joining. We'll be back next week. Mr. Sam Lippo will be bringing you the D2 division race in Russia, and then we will be having D1 on Thursday evening, and then the main event, Premier X, on Friday evening. So from myself and from Jacob, stay fast, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.